Spy X Family Season 3 finally hits the airwaves. Twilight performs an excavator battle right off the bat, while his best buddy, Frankie, tries to hit on Fiona, the very girl who was secretly pinning for Twilight. The story goes that not long ago, Anya's family visited the park to unwind after a long stretch of busy days. Bond drooled at the sight of the ice cream in Anya's hand. Loid reminded his daughter to eat less ice cream and warned Bond that chocolate is poisonous to dogs. Hearing this, Bond immediately put on a delightfully sorrowful sad dog face. Afterward, Anya wanted to buy a balloon. Once approved by both parents, she led Bond running toward the balloon vendor. Suddenly, Bond froze, sensing something suspicious. Anya immediately activated her mind-reading ability to see what he was thinking. Thanks to Bond's precognition, she saw a vision of an excavator uprooting trees. Even more horrifying, those trees were falling on tourists in the park, causing mass casualties. Knowing this, Anya froze in fear. What should she do if a bad guy uses a tank to start trouble? She decided to use her mind-reading skills again to identify the culprit causing the disturbance. Just when she thought her efforts were in vain, she suddenly heard the inner thoughts of a worker complaining from outside the fence. It's the weekend, and everyone else is out playing or shopping. Why the hell am I sitting here working like a dog only to get chewed out by my boss? It was clear this worker had reached his breaking point with his boring job. Anya immediately marked him as a suspect. But how could she tell her parents about this villain without revealing that she could read minds? She lied and said she wanted to go home. But they hadn't been out for very long. Her unusual behavior attracted Loid's attention. Seeing that didn't work, Anya claimed she wanted to go home to study so she could earn lots of Stella stars for her parents. Loid was relieved to hear this. Anya is usually incredibly lazy, but today she was voluntarily asking to study. She had finally grown up. As for Ya, never mind her, but even the usually sharp Loid bought it hook, line, and sinker and decided to head home immediately. Hearing this, Anya breathed a sigh of relief. She led the two of them toward a construction site. Her looking back and forth attracted the attention of her ever-curious father. Anya claimed her teacher had taught her that walking around town could teach them interesting facts. This excuse immediately fooled Loid once again. Next, Anya discovered the dangerous subject sitting inside an excavator within the construction site. As fate would have it, the scene was exactly identical to what Bond had predicted. She asked Loid if workers there didn't get days off. Usually, they do, but perhaps this guy wanted to dedicate himself entirely to capitalism, or maybe he was being exploited by his boss. Hearing this, Anya pointed toward the worker operating in the distance. At that moment, Twilight's spy instincts kicked in. He observed and deduced that the man must have accumulated a significant amount of stress. Furthermore, the worker's demolition technique was incredibly sloppy. Continuing like that would cause a serious accident. Seeing this scene, he had a vague premonition that something bad was about to happen. In a turn of events, the worker was trying to pull a torn cloth that was blocking his view. Because he pulled too hard, the cloth ripped, causing him to tumble to the ground. The worker looked up at the sky, imagining that he, too, could have a happy family like the people around him, but that was no longer possible. While he was mid-thought, a bird flew by and dropped a poop that landed with pinpoint accuracy right on his face. Enraged, the worker ran back into the excavator, transforming into a maniac driver, and began performing a tornado of death. Countless debris flew toward Anya's family. Seeing this, the two parents rushed to protect the child and the dog. Twilight told them to stay put. He would personally handle this mess. Inside the site, the worker was still driving his steed, going absolutely wild. To stop him from crashing the excavator into the park, Twilight decided to commandeer another excavator to confront him. Seeing this, the worker had no intention of stopping. The two excavators squared off, neither side willing to yield. Anya watched from the sidelines, incredibly excited that her dad was using a tank to fight and protect them. Suddenly, you noticed a building in front of them was about to collapse, and directly beneath it was an old man casually walking his dog. You told the family to stay back while she went to save the old man. Meanwhile, Twilight was still locked in combat with the crazed worker. Seeing the stalemate, Twilight changed tactics. He pulled the two control levers in opposite directions, spinning the tracks rapidly to kick up gravel and shatter the opponent's window. Taking advantage of the enemy's distraction, a strong ram tipped the machine over. And so, the crisis was finally resolved. Anya told Bond that, once again, she and her parents had saved world peace. That evening, Anya couldn't stand the idea of studying and just wanted to watch cartoons. However, since she had demanded to go home to study that morning, Loid decided to discipline her properly. This made Anya feel like her father was a demon. He cheered Anya on and casually mentioned she would cook a delicious dinner for her. This sentence terrified Anya and Bond into silence. Last time, the dog thought he was getting a treat and was excited, but if it weren't for his ability to see the future, Bond might have gone to meet his ancestors. The scene shifts to Sylvia arriving at the organization to receive a mission. The man in the dossier had restricted the export of strawberries from the east to the west. The consequence was that a VIP's birthday cake lacked strawberries for decoration, and that was why he needed to be taught a lesson. The agent assigned to the mission was Twilight's colleague, Fiona. She then sought out Twilight. Her mouth spoke of the plan, but her eyes screamed crush. This girl clearly wanted to be a homewrecker. After exchanging information with Twilight, she used his connections to find Frankie. Seeing a beautiful woman, Frankie immediately tried to flirt. Witnessing this, Fiona wanted to leave on the spot. But after a brief conversation, she had to reveal that she needed an official signature to forge documents. She asked Frankie to introduce her to the contact who usually handled such jobs. She would personally negotiate with him. The mission had to be completed in half a month. She didn't have time to waste entertaining this guy. Although Fiona issued a threat, Frankie was unfazed. He explained that the underworld only deals with acquaintances. Without him showing his face, nothing would happen. Fiona lost her patience and dragged him to meet the person immediately. Frankie explained he didn't know the man's home address. The only way to trade was to meet him at a bar. Fiona wanted to storm right in to save time. But Frankie stopped her, explaining that appearing suddenly would put everyone on high alert. And so, we have this scene. Frankie, wanting to satisfy his own selfish desires, disguised himself and Fiona as a sweet couple. If her senior, Twilight, saw her in this state, she would be mortified. Fiona quickly warned Frankie that if this plan was just to satisfy his perverted intentions, she would shoot him dead the moment the mission ended. As soon as they reached the door, security stopped them, but luckily the guard was an acquaintance of Frankie. The guy successfully showed off his connections and they entered the bar smoothly. Frankie completely forgot the mission and paraded Fiona around, boasting that he had escaped the forever alone life. Fiona could have tolerated it a bit longer, but Frankie was being so excessive that she couldn't take it anymore. As predicted, an incident occurred. Fiona now just wanted to give him a parting bullet. The cowardly Frankie quickly knelt and apologized. No next time for this shameless pervert. Finally, the contact they were looking for appeared. Frankie removed his disguise. But just as he was about to say hello, Fiona cut him off. She silently threw down a check and stated she would discuss the details if the old man accepted the deal. The man thought the amount of money and the deadline were unreasonable, so he stood up and left without a word. The two chased after him. Fiona said she had something to tell him. The old man immediately interrupted, telling her to come back when she had enough money. But that wasn't what Fiona wanted to say. She revealed that they were all being followed. The people tailing them were likely from the secret police. Fiona felt the old man was in danger, but he ignored her and ran off. Sure enough, enemies ambushed him around the corner. Just as an attacker was about to strike the old man, Fiona delivered a flying kick straight to the enemy's face. She quickly dragged the old man away to flee. Fiona's assistance won the old man's trust, and he agreed to give up a more lucrative deal to help her complete her mission. Just when they thought they were safe, another gunman appeared at the alley entrance. In a moment, hanging by a thread, Frankie pushed Fiona down to dodge the bullet. Afterward, Fiona looked extremely displeased. Frankie tried to explain he didn't do it because he wanted to hug her. Fiona had to give up on the bachelor. Having anticipated the attack, she had already thrown a dagger through the enemy's hand. Hearing this, Frankie was so embarrassed he wanted to hide his head in a hole. Immediately after, using an abandoned tunnel provided by Frankie, the group finally shook off the secret police's pursuit. A few days later, Fiona came to collect the forged documents. Frankie took the opportunity to ask if she had intentionally attracted the secret police that day. Fiona didn't answer. She simply stated that if she needed anything in the future, she would commission Frankie again. What a way to threaten someone. Working with her meant risking losing all his friends. What on earth happened to make our little Anya look so panicked, her limbs shaking like she had been struck by lightning? The story goes that on a beautiful morning, following a chaotic holiday, the elegant Mr. Henderson suddenly reprimanded the class's attitude severely. He demanded that everyone switch to serious mode and not be negligent during this time, otherwise, they would instantly receive a tinnitus bolt. By the time school was over, Damien's trio of troublemakers came to pick a fight with Anya as usual. Damien, looking both arrogant and slightly shy, stood between his two lackeys. As soon as they met, Damien boasted that he predicted Anya would be the first student in the grade to be expelled from school for eating too many tinnitus bolts. Hearing this, Becky and Anya felt incredibly annoyed and wanted nothing more than to beat these three fools up. However, since they were at school, the two girls had to restrain themselves. Becky retorted, "I heard you overslept once too. Are you sure you won't get punished for being late next time, Damien?" Before Damien could say anything, his two henchmen loudly bragged, "If Boss Damien gets a tinnitus, the three of us promise to run around the schoolyard in our underwear." This comedic display left Damien frozen. No one is so perfect that they never make a mistake in their life. Just then, Bill Watkins ran over, screaming, "It's over. Run, sir. The feared Lady Tinnitus has returned and is heading toward our class." This female teacher was notoriously cruel. If she saw a student step out of line even a little, she would slap them with a nitrous bolt without hesitation. Rumor had it that wherever she walked, no one survived. The group was terrified and about to flee, but alas, it was too late. The cruel witch had appeared right behind them, demanding they line up single file for a personal belongings inspection. Using her mind-reading ability, Anya knew immediately that this old woman was annoyed with everything. She just wanted to punish others to satisfy her own whims. Damien's two lackeys, Ewan and Emile, saw her and drained of color. Suddenly, a student received a nitrous bolt simply for not bringing a handkerchief. Damien frantically searched his pockets for his handkerchief, but unluckily, he had forgotten it at home. Damien immediately imagined the scene of the power trio having to run around the school in their underwear as previously promised. To save himself, he planned to borrow Ewan's handkerchief, but Anya and Becky mentally mocked him, thinking that would be cheating. Why should Ewan suffer for his mistake? With no other choice, Damien had to accept the harsh truth. But there was a bigger problem. If he received a nitrous bolt, even just one, he would have no face left to see his father. Hearing this, Anya was terrified. Would Loid's plan be failed because of this? Just as Damien was about to evaporate from anxiety, Anya handed him her handkerchief and bluffed that she had foreseen this, so she brought 2 spares. Hearing this, Damien accepted her kindness like he had struck gold. Anya was already dreaming of a bright future where Plan B succeeded perfectly. World peace was right here. After Damien passed the inspection safely, Anya finally stepped up with a calm and confident demeanor. She confidently reached in to pull out her second handkerchief to show off, but unexpectedly, there was no handkerchief in her bag, only a single pellet of Bond's dog food. Hearing this, Damien was shocked to the core. He didn't expect things to turn out this way. Seeing Anya looking incredibly sad, he planned to confess to Lady Nitrous to set things right. The woman suddenly noticed his gaze and stared at him. She thought to herself, if you dare use cheap tricks to deceive me, I'll give you both a scar. Anya read that thought and quickly stopped Damien before things got worse. After the supervisor left, Damien returned the handkerchief to Anya and promised to fully repay this favor. Back at home, Anya boasted to Loid that Damien was about to treat her to snacks. Loid was overjoyed to hear this. He also thought their Anya was truly capable. But immediately after, Loid spotted the nitrous bolt sitting conspicuously on Anya's shirt. Going from one surprise to another, the father couldn't take it and fainted flat on the floor. While in a daze, a stream of memories returned to Loid from a time long ago in the past. Young Loid didn't just like playing soldier, he and his friends even simulated a battlefield in a secret base. For him, this war game was easier than eating candy. Back then, Loid was such a talented commander that whichever team he was on was guaranteed to win. To his friends, he was like a challenger player smurfing in bronze rank just to crush noobs. It was late when Loid finally returned home to find his father back from a business trip. Seeing the toy gun in his son's hand, the father realized Loid was still playing those nonsense war games and became very angry. The father believed Loid should study more seriously and not waste time on useless things. The boy argued back immediately, saying that he would definitely join the army in the future to fight the people of Ostania. Hearing this, his father told him to give up that stupid idea. A coward like him going to the battlefield would only be a burden to his teammates. Loid disagreed, saying he had enough confidence to do it without bothering anyone. When words failed, violence prevailed. His father gave him a hard slap and told him he knew nothing about Ostania. He affirmed that there would be no war between the two countries and forbade Loid from speaking blindly. Loid couldn't stand it and ran to his room, thinking his father just liked picking fights with his mother. What made him any better? The next day, Loid and his friends went to a croquet shop. He heard an old man cursing the enemy. Loid asked an adult if war would really happen. The person just laughed and said that as long as kids were still playing soldier, there would be no war. The old man thought they were just complacent fools, keep being subjective, and one day they would pay the price. A friend teased Loid, asking how he could enlist without a uniform, and noted his gun was broken. Was he planning to take a hammer to the battlefield to fight the enemy? Upon reaching home, Loid planned to use his allowance to buy a new soldier uniform, but with only 2 measly coins, it was a pipe dream. He resorted to lying, telling his father he wanted to buy reference books to ask for more money. His father was so happy to hear that, he gave him a whole 10 coins and promised to take the whole family on a holiday trip after his next business assignment. This time, as his father was about to leave, Loid wanted to call him back to tell the truth, but he didn't have the courage to do so. That day, Loid found all his food tasteless. The next day, he brought his newly bought soldier uniform to show off to his friends, but remembering the words of his father and the others, he felt incredibly guilty for having committed a mistake against his own family. Loid told his friends he was no longer in the mood to play. Leaving the secret base, he ran to the croquet shop and seriously asked the female owner if he was suitable to become a soldier. She said that war was meaningless and it was best not to do it. Loid asked if the people of the East were devils with horns on their heads. The owner smiled gently, saying she also had relatives in the east. Did she look like a relative of a devil? Hearing this, Loid realized things were not as he had imagined. He asked to work part-time at the shop to earn money to pay his father back. He decided it would be best to apologize and then invite his friends to play a different game. But right at that moment, a shell suddenly fell on their secret base. Along with an explosion that echoed through the sky, the base instantly turned into a pile of ash. Watching the thick smoke rising in the distance, the young boy Twilight stood frozen in place. War between the two countries had broken out right before his eyes. A brick flew straight into Loid's head, knocking him out cold instantly. How could young Loid have suspected that the war the adults bluffed would never come would suddenly explode right before his eyes? Just seconds ago, the bakery owner was chatting with him. Now, she was silently buried under a pile of rubble. If he hadn't been wearing the soldier's helmet he tricked his father into buying, Loid would have become just another nameless corpse by now. His brain was still buzzing, while the scent of blood and death spread through every corner of the city. Fortunately, his mother found him. She wanted to take Loid to his uncle's city to seek refuge. Loid was stunned to realize that his familiar school life and the upcoming town festival were now completely out of reach. From then on, Loid never saw his father again. Those adults were all liars and frauds. Didn't they promise war wouldn't break out? Didn't father promise we would go to the festival together when he returned? Outside, bombs roared occasionally. Loid's heart trembled with every alarm. Terrified, he curled up in his mother's lap. He wanted to go home. He missed his father. He wanted to see his friends again. The war lulled for a moment. Loid pulled himself together and went fishing. The harvest wasn't bad today. Recently, the whole family hadn't been eating enough, but tonight they could finally have a feast. Unexpectedly, the air raid siren suddenly rang out like a death knell. His city was being bombed by the east again. He was dragged into a shelter, worrying about his mother's safety every single second. Once the raid ended, Loid ignored warnings and stubbornly waited against the stream of refugees to run back home. But what awaited him was the realization that his daily life could never return amidst the fire and thick smoke. That day, Loid didn't remember how long he cried. He struggled like a street rat for several years. Everything he cherished had been stolen by the East. This reason alone was enough for him to pick up a gun for revenge. Not yet 18, he stole a compatriot's identity to enlist. By this time, Loid could lie without flinching. Relying on his intelligent brain, Loid continuously achieved merits. His hands were stained with the blood of countless enemies. One night, while carrying out a raid mission, he accidentally captured a deserter from the east. This was the first encounter between Loid and Frankie. Loid originally intended to dispose of him, but he was made to laugh by Frankie's words. "I haven't even got a girlfriend yet, how can I die here?" Perhaps because the opponent had no killing intent, Loid lowered his weapon and even chatted with Frankie. Frankie recounted a meaningful experiment. When people watch a video of someone being slapped, they all feel uncomfortable. This shows that humans inherently know how to avoid violence. But if the person being beaten is labeled a cheater, the audience feels satisfied. Isn't that terrifying? You just need to apply a label mixing truth and falsehood, and the human brain can be easily influenced. It's just like the war between our two countries right now. It is clearly due to the diplomatic failures of the elites, yet they force us commoners to hate each other and fight to the death. Loid went mad. He had clearly witnessed with his own eyes the East carrying out the first bombing run. Frankie argued back that the East claimed the West provoked them first. Both sides were merely victims of propaganda and agitation. Loid kicked Frankie. The scene he saw was his close friends and relatives all dying under the fire of the East. But what about Frankie? Wasn't it the same for him? Just as Loid was about to pull the trigger, a bullet from the East hit his helmet. The noise between the two had attracted the soldiers hunting Frankie. Frankie thanked Loid for sparing him, and the two split up to escape, surviving by a hair's breadth. Loid nearly lost a leg and an eye. For a short time, he could only stay in the rear serving as a cook. That day, while peeling potatoes, he unexpectedly reunited with his childhood friends. Loid could hardly contain his emotions, known as cold-blooded on the battlefield, his eyes now welled up with tears. Back then, their secret base in the military warehouse was the first place to be blown up. Loid had never been able to forgive himself, blaming himself for choosing that spot. Only now did he learn that on that day, Loid had gone home early to prepare for the festival, and his friends had chased after him, so they escaped the disaster. Loid had 1,000 things to say, but his friends informed him that their squad was going on an attack mission that night, so they had to reschedule. But Loid only learned later that the mission his friends carried out that night was essentially a reckless suicide run. Returning to Loid were only 3 cold dog tags. He couldn't help but wonder if he had understood the operation plan deeply and known the enemy's movements. Could he have changed everything? But he knew nothing and could do nothing. He didn't even know the reason for the war, he just held a gun without cause and followed orders without cause. This ignorance made him feel helpless and deeply guilty. Loid's heart gradually became callous. That day, the appearance of a man changed his destiny. It turned out to be an undercover officer from military intelligence. He sought Loid out, not only speaking Loid's real name but also exposing that he had impersonated someone else to enlist. This man had scouted Loid's talent, believing that compared to a gun, intelligence was a weapon more suitable for him. He stated that if Loid didn't join intelligence, he would report him for identity fraud. Loid had no other choice. It was just that, at this point, no matter how much intelligence he gathered, those carefree days by the riverbank could never return. The next day, Loid followed instructions to the train station. The man took his belongings and threw them into the furnace to burn. From today on, you will abandon your name and status to operate in the shadows for the sake of the country. You will be Twilight. Twilight, all alone in the world, no longer cared about these things. He didn't even care about the war anymore. When asked why he enlisted, Twilight didn't answer. Beside him, innocent children walked by laughing. Twilight, who had once stood in the rain, simply wanted to hold an umbrella for those kids, creating a world where children wouldn't have to cry. After that, Twilight met his current superior, Sylvia, and accepted several years of rigorous special agent training. Sylvia's stern face startled Loid awake. He stood up to see Anya looking at him with worry. Even though those were memories from long ago, Loid was still haunted by that past filled with the smell of gunpowder. Bond read that his father had a nightmare, and Anya came over to pat Loid's head to comfort him. Only then did Loid react, realizing he had fainted earlier after hearing Anya say she got a tinnitus bolt. Fearing Loid would get angry, Anya quickly hid behind Bond, scared and blaming herself, whispering an apology to her father. But Loid affirmed her friendship with Damien. An image of playing with his childhood friends flashed in his mind, and he told Anya she must cherish her friends. Dinner was still chopping onions, but the mood at home was completely different from the army. Anya's family spent another day in simple happiness, praying for a peaceful world without war. As a veteran spy expert, she only needed a single glance to confidently discover a fatal detail during the live broadcast. The security guard, who was supposed to be responsible for security, was glued to the entrance where the VIP was about to appear. Moreover, he wasn't wearing the police badge as required. Even his location didn't match the patrol schedule. These irregular actions led Sylvia to conclude that the security guard had been switched, and the arrival was likely the suspect who had issued the death threat earlier. Thus, she immediately called her subordinate, notifying him of the suspect's description and location, and demanded tight surveillance without a single gap. Sylvia herself would head there immediately. Meanwhile, Winman, the special guest attending the East-West exchange event, chose to enter through the back door to avoid being surrounded by the press. Who would have guessed that this was all within the fake guard's prediction? When he attached the silencer to his gun, the subordinate tracking him was as tense as a violin string because the boss hadn't arrived yet. He could only act according to Plan B, notify the boss to hurry up while he pretended to be a delivery man bringing Winman a roast turkey. Realizing something was off, Winman's bodyguards immediately stopped the subordinate, and this successfully blocked the fake guard's first assassination attempt. Just as he was intending to strike again, who knew that the sound of rushing footsteps was approaching? A woman then pulled off her belt and whipped the gun right out of his hand. Seeing the opponent try to pull a knife to resist, Sylvia delivered another strike. This time, he was completely stunned. The woman before him was as domineering as a god, even displaying godlike speed. While the man who had been sent flying hadn't even hit the ground yet, she had already selected a command position, silently completing the mission perfectly with her subordinate. And that is the Full Metal Lady, the person who makes even Westalis' top spy, Twilight, wake up from nightmares. She was the superior who once trained him, and now, a rookie spy had fallen into her hands. However, to teach the Greenhorn how to distinguish between real and fake information, she had to rack her brain. Coincidentally, the legendary opera singer Winman attending the East-West exchange event became the best lesson. When rumors about Winman flew everywhere, criticizing his chaotic private life or alleging ties to the mafia, the rookie called Winman trash, saying he was unworthy of the title icebreaker count and that having him promote East-West friendly relations was a joke. However, Sylvia's method was to tell the rookie to quickly stop the press from spreading negative news. After all, the tabloid rumors the rookie was proud of were actually published by a paper under the Estonian National Unity Party. It couldn't be ruled out that someone was intentionally trying to obstruct Winman from coming to Westalis. Therefore, before the truth is exposed, seeing isn't necessarily believing. Very quickly, along with the appearance of the death threat, the press went wild. Even if 90% thought it was a prank, if there was just a 10% chance of it happening, Winman's life could very well be the fuse for a war. The rookie still thought it was impossible and that there was no need to act. This gave Sylvia a headache. She wondered if she was getting old, as she felt training rookies was becoming increasingly difficult. Among the recent young people, no one seemed to have a talent for espionage. Remembering when she trained Twilight, he was the same, always seeing things in black and white, unable to analyze the situation comprehensively. Sylvia couldn't help but sigh. Training rookies truly required a bit of patience. Because the very next day, that rookie came screaming while hugging an article exonerating Winman. This time, he was absolutely sure the previous rumors were slander and that Winman was a good person through and through. But Sylvia was still unsatisfied with this answer. After all, the news the press shows you isn't necessarily the truth. As a spy, one must have their own logic to think about the truth. And very quickly, once Sylvia successfully prevented the assassination and ensured Winman safely attended the exchange event, the truth surfaced. The assassin was an Austanian army veteran. After being discharged, he changed jobs frequently and was arrested multiple times for assault. He considered himself a messenger of justice with a duty to act on behalf of heaven. Therefore, by assassinating a Winman who was hated by the public, he could enjoy the sense of superiority that justice brought. After this incident, Sylvia used it as a lesson. If their Westalis also took too much pride in protecting peace, they could very well become arrogant, perhaps even committing terrible acts to achieve their goals. The rookie assumed he had learned a lesson, acknowledging his shallowness and ignorance, and vowed never to be deceived by the appearance of things again. He thought he might go to Winman's performance later to apologize to the good man who promoted East-West peace. But the result was a piece of internal intelligence that once again shattered his perception of Winman. The guy's private life was a tangled mess. One of the women he was seeing was the wife of a mafia boss. It was completely contrary to Winman's positive image in the press. Seeing the rookie momentarily unable to distinguish real from fake, Sylvia could only say, "You still have a lot of training to do, kid." Not long after that, one day at Anya's dismissal time, after saying goodbye to Becky, the little girl obediently waited for the school bus. But what shocked Anya to her core was that the bus driver had suddenly fallen ill, and the next bus wouldn't arrive for a long time. Helpless, the students had to find places to kill time. But Anya had nowhere to go, and her best friend Becky had already gone home, so she stood bored in one spot waiting. Mr. Henry Henderson saw the pitiful girl and intended to ask her to help him move documents to kill time. The result was Anya bluntly saying, "I'm busy enjoying my boredom, so I probably can't help." Henry was helpless with this kid. He promised that if Anya finished the work, she would get candy. So, without a second thought, Anya hugged the stack of books and followed the teacher. As they walked, the teacher asked Anya if she liked school life. Anya cautiously probed, "If I don't like it, what's the result? If I don't like it, will I get expelled?" Of course not. The teacher simply wanted to comfort Anya not to hate school due to loneliness. After all, when he was a student, he didn't have any friends either and just complained all day. He didn't notice Anya trying to comfort him and continued advising her that if she had any troubles, she should speak up. He was always ready to listen. At that moment, he felt a bit rude for using an adult taking care of a child tone to comfort a student with such a strong inner mind. It wasn't elegant at all. But Anya was equally badass. She had actually forgotten about the tinnitus bowl penalty from a few days ago. Thinking that she had made the teacher lose face and fearing he wouldn't give her candy later, it would be a disaster. So, Anya had to pretend to be a traumatized child so the teacher would grant her some pity. She then solemnly recounted the reason for her punishment. Since getting a tinnitus for not bringing a handkerchief, Anya now carried several with her at all times. But the point wasn't whether she carried them or not, but whether, after the punishment, she had gained the mindset of paying attention to details. Continuing to maintain that would naturally form an elegant attitude over time. But for Anya, this was like water off a duck's back. She wasn't listening at all. At this point, the teacher had to console himself that Anya was still a child. It was normal for her not to understand these abstract principles. Perhaps he should use simpler words to teach her. But Anya had mind-reading abilities, so she naturally understood what the teacher meant. Wasn't it just be careful and bring extra handkerchiefs to avoid a tinnitus? This left the teacher completely speechless. It seemed he couldn't explain this moral clearly to Anya today. Anyway, Anya keeping self-discipline wasn't wrong. But does self-discipline get a Stella star? After all, becoming an Imperial Scholar with 7 or 8 stars is pretty cool. However, the teacher found this delusional. Clearly, during the interview, hadn't she said she wanted to be elegant like the headmaster? But how could Anya remember Babel from so long ago? So, to make Anya realize the value of an Imperial Scholar and the importance of each star, the teacher felt it necessary to tutor her immediately. In the 500-year history of Eden Academy, those who became Imperial Scholars were all exceptional talents in every field. No one did it without undergoing consistent, persistent training and never giving up, finally earning the honor of 8 stars and the title. Therefore, if Anya wanted to make that her goal, he couldn't guarantee she would succeed, but she couldn't rush it either. From elementary school, she had to build a solid foundation not just in academics, sports, and life skills, but also in elevating her character and mindset. At the same time, the teacher told Anya some good news: getting a tinnitus didn't necessarily make one a loser. She shouldn't be discouraged by it. Many people had turned the tables in the end. After all, there was even an imperial scholar here who had once received 6 to nitrous bolts. After being lectured the whole way, Anya finally finished moving the books and received the long-awaited candy. Anya didn't wait for the teacher to finish his introduction before stuffing a large handful into her mouth. You must be asking how delicious this unique flavor, researched by imperial scholars for 2.5 years, is? It's sweet and yummy. Used to Anya's shallow comments, the teacher wasn't surprised today. On the contrary, he felt inexplicably happy. He opened his mouth to ask if Anya wanted him to tutor her on her previous wrong answers. Hearing this, Anya immediately put the candy box down. No thanks. It seems I'll be fine without eating these snacks. But after returning home, Anya seemed to turn into a different person. Simply because she read her father's mind that he was busy all day with spy missions and her mother was also busy with assassination missions. Since both had worked hard all day, Anya felt she couldn't lag too far behind. So she asked her father if he could teach her to study after dinner. These words made Twilight stand frozen in place. That day, Yu was preparing to go shopping and casually asked Anya if she wanted anything. Although Anya's answer was a bit abstract, a type of crispy, crunchy pastry that her teacher had given her before, Yu still promised to try her best to find it. Who knew what kind of snack that old teacher had treated Anya to? As fate would have it, just as she stepped out the door, she ran into some nosy neighbors who were enthusiastically looking for gossip. Yu intended to ask them where the bakery was, but then she thought that if they badmouthed her for not even knowing where to buy her own child's favorite snack, her status as a stepmother would surely be exposed. And so, without a word of goodbye, Yu bolted straight away, leaving the two enthusiastic neighbors standing there in confusion. Although she still hadn't fully integrated into a normal life and didn't know where to learn about motherhood, today she was determined to excellently complete the mission her daughter had entrusted to her. Thus, the search for the crispy, crunchy snack became her top priority. But finding such a specific dish was like finding a needle in a haystack. After thinking it over, Yu decided to go to the department store to see if they sold it there. However, since she rarely went to such places alone, Yu looked very tense, even her steps were cautious, as if someone nearby were about to stab her. While walking, she was suddenly approached by a cosmetics saleswoman inviting her to buy something. She flinched violently, nearly scared out of her wits. Hearing the woman introduce a new eyebrow pencil, Yu, with her assassin instincts, mistook it for a type of dagger used to attack a target's eyebrows. "Oh, no thank you, miss. I'm here to find sweets today, not to buy weapons. By the way, could you tell me where the snack shop is?" After getting the information, Yu immediately sped up and rushed straight to the ground floor. She thought to herself that the rumors were true. The department store was an extremely dangerous place, selling strange and poisonous weapons she had never even heard of. She needed to finish her mission quickly and escape this place immediately. Upon reaching the stairs, a rare incident occurred that you couldn't just stand by and watch. A woman walking in the opposite direction suddenly slipped and fell, forcing you to unleash her heroin saves the beauty technique. This skill of Yu's captured the heart of the mysterious lady. She assumed that if Yu wasn't Superman, she must be a world-class athlete. The lady hurriedly asked if Yu lived nearby. However, to avoid suspicion, Yu hurriedly denied it, saying she was just a normal housewife here to buy snacks for her child. Ironically, she was currently holding all the snacks that the lady had just bought from a famous shop, which she had saved from falling. To repay her for saving her life, the lady gifted her all the candy and said that if Yu could help her with one more thing, she would surely reward her with a very meaningful gift. Yu, who found it hard to refuse requests, was now being asked so enthusiastically that she had to agree. Who would have guessed that the lady would lead her to a gymnasium just to play a recreational game of volleyball? What on earth is volleyball? I've never touched this game in my life. Yu thought. Seeing his confusion, the lady explained the situation. It turned out the people there were all mothers living in the neighborhood. They had formed an association called the Lady Patriots Society. Initially, it was just for gossiping, but occasionally they organized recreational activities, attracting quite a few women. Today's activity was Mothers Volleyball. Because her team always failed miserably against the women's team from the north area, the lady hoped that Yu, with her extraordinary strength, could help her team win. Although Yu had never played volleyball, if it was just a casual game, trying it out wouldn't be a big deal. According to the rules the lady explained, she just needed to keep the ball from touching the ground and hit it over to the opponent's court, which was simple for Yu. However, Yu missed a very important detail. On her first receive, after successfully bumping it into the air, she suddenly jumped up on the spot with an overpowered posture. Looking toward the opposite side, Yu unleashed a spike that would go down in sports history. But it was a foul. The point went to the other team because one person cannot touch the ball twice in a row. Yu made a note of that. This time, she didn't foul, but running from the back row to the front to steal the ball was definitely not playing nice. Volleyball requires teamwork. The lady also came over to advise Yu not to try to carry the team alone, so Yu quickly adjusted herself. When it was her turn, she hit. If she could pass to a teammate, she just passed. But after a while, their team was still trailing. In the end, even though you tried her best, she couldn't carry the ladies' volleyball team. Victory went to the women's team from the north. However, it wasn't without its rewards. The group had a lot of fun this time. There were a few shots where you spiked the ball so hard it nearly made the northern team cry their eyes out. The ladies laughed heartily recalling it. During the tea party after the match, while chatting, the Lady Patriots group discussed their children. But this was a bit awkward for you because, among all the mothers there, only she was a stepmother. Furthermore, as a mother and a wife in a family, she felt she wasn't quite standard yet. The other mothers kindly shared their thoughts, confessing that they didn't know how to get along with their children either, which was why they gathered to learn from each other. Every day, they collected information and researched how to be great mothers. They were trying together to build a happy neighborhood. At this moment, the lady formally invited you to become an official member of the society. You never expected to accidentally stumble into a group of parents from her child's school. Even more unbelievable was that Ms. Melinda's son was in the same class as Anya, and that person was the national crush, Damien. The lady then remembered, it seems Anya punched my son at the entrance ceremony. You suddenly realized something was wrong and hurriedly apologized, hoping she wouldn't blame Anya, saying it was due to her poor parenting that things turned out this way. However, the lady wasn't angry at all, on the contrary, she told you not to be too stressed. My husband also said it was just children quarreling. But you still felt uneasy. Just as she was about to say something more, the lady suddenly flipped her expression faster than a pancake. Although she didn't know what had happened, her intuition told you it was best not to mention Damien again. After you calmed down, the lady immediately returned to her kind demeanor. Now knowing you was the mother of that interesting classmate, the lady became increasingly interested in her. She hoped you would think carefully about joining the Lady Patriots Society with them, but added, if you cannot join due to your political stance, I hope we can still be good friends. On the way back home, the lady of the Desmond house suddenly mentioned Damien. I heard from the butler that the boy seems to like school life very much. Who knows, maybe he and Anya get along better than we can imagine. Ye replied, whenever Anya mentions Damien's name, she seems very happy. Hearing this, the lady appeared satisfied. I look forward to your help in the future. But at the same time, her unreadable expression changed again, confusing you greatly. Why the long face all of a sudden, my dear? That night, you recounted the day's events to Twilight. Up until now, she still thought she had merely coincidentally met the parent of a normal classmate of her daughter Anya. You had no idea that it was the wife of the current former Prime Minister, Melinda Donovan. Twilight was shocked upon hearing the situation. It was fortunate that nothing major had happened. You even successfully brought back the snack Anya requested. But compared to his carefree attitude, Twilight was frowning in thought. According to the information he received, the lady was just like her husband, Donovan. They had a very narrow social circle and were hard to approach. Since the regime change, was this meeting truly a coincidence? Could this have been set up by Donovan beforehand? Did I expose a flaw when talking to him last time? But thinking it over, Twilight felt this possibility was too low. However, Twilight was still considering other possibilities. He had no idea that his brain-twisting thoughts were making Anya dizzy. You broke the silence. She hoped Twilight would agree to let her join the Lady Patriots Society. That way, I'll have more opportunities to learn how to be a great mother and integrate into the life of a normal person. But the former Prime Minister's family isn't exactly a normal family, miss. However, if you refused, their relationship might deteriorate. In the end, Twilight agreed. After all, they were just a fake couple. He was still worried that family life had unintentionally created pressure for you. Outside the family, having a place to chat with friends is also a good thing. Although you had her brother Yuri to confide in, there were still things she could only say to female friends like herself. Twilight told you to just enjoy normal activities, have fun with friends, and enjoy this life. Hearing this, you was touched. Just as she was about to say something, Twilight cut her off internally. I have my own self-interests, too. It is said that those who don't integrate into the community are easily reported as suspicious. But beyond those superficial words, Twilight was silently calculating the benefits. If you became close friends with Lady Melinda, who knows? This might be a third path to completing the mission. If Anya and Damien becoming friends was Plan B, then this third path could be called Plan C, the mommy friendship scheme. It was brilliant. However, Anya, who read those thoughts, felt incredibly unstable. If Plan C succeeded, she would no longer have any utility value in this family. A useless kid like her could be kicked to the curb at any time. Anya sensed the danger. Will Manya and Damien's mom become close first, or will Damien and I become close first? Anya's future depended on it. Her battle with her mother had officially begun. So, Anya decided she had to race against time. First, study hard to improve grades. Second, think of many ways to befriend Damien. That plan. I'll think about it tomorrow, I can't keep my eyes open anymore. Yeah, and Anya slept straight until morning. Yeah, worried, couldn't sleep. Feeling like she had forgotten something. It wasn't until the next day that she remembered to report her work to the shopkeeper. She also shared that she wanted to become friends with the former prime minister's wife. The boss didn't object, it's just that life is unpredictable. To protect the peace of the East, those closely related to politics could appear on the garden's blacklist. Therefore, it was best not to befriend people like her. But if he insisted, the boss couldn't stop her. She only warned her to ensure her husband didn't suspect her political stance. The scene shifts to Anya arriving at school with a gloomy face. After a whole night, she hadn't come up with a strategy to win over Damien. She had almost given up. But luckily, Becky was a treasure trove of ideas. She immediately offered a plan to Anya. Legend has it that if you just hold a piece of bread in your mouth and bump into someone at a corner, the two will eventually end up together. Just a second after suggesting it, Becky ran off to buy bread. But while normal people's bread looks one way, Anya held a hamburger in her mouth and charged straight into Damien's face. Everyone who witnessed it stood frozen. She had spilled the filling all over Grant's head. Anya still hadn't realized the severity of the problem. I sincerely apologize for wasting food. But that didn't matter much because Damien just wanted to beat this brat up at all costs, regardless of whether he got a tinnitus bolt or not. Anya could never have imagined that a field trip, which was supposed to be as easy as pie, would turn into a bus hijacking that scared her out of her wits. The students and teachers of Eden Academy were facing a crisis unprecedented in its history. The story began a few days earlier. In an effort to befriend Damien, Anya listened to her strategist, Becky, and executed a plan called Operation Sandwich. Who would have thought it would turn a silk purse into a sow's ear? The grand plan failed miserably, and her crush wanted to pummel her just to vent his anger. The next day, Anya approached Damien again, demanding he repay the pastry debt as promised. Hearing this, Damien turned purple with rage. But he remembered that he did indeed owe Anya a favor for the handkerchief incident. A CEO-to-be keeps his word, he would definitely follow through. However, he wondered why this little girl only wanted some sweets and not something bigger. Whatever, she should count herself lucky she didn't ask to meet his father to ask for business favors for her family. Hearing Damien's thoughts, Anya had an epiphany. She hurriedly did a U-turn as if she had found the ultimate truth. I want to come to your house to play, but I insist on bringing my whole family. Hearing this, Becky's jaw dropped. Anya, you're attacking too fast. Who demands to be taken home to meet the parents at this age? People will think you're an easy girl. Damien, blushing like a tomato, stuttered and couldn't speak. His two lackeys retorted, commoners like you aren't qualified to enter that place and meet Mr. Donovan. Anya wagged her finger like a wise old woman. Wrong. My mom just met the second son's mom recently. They even became besties. Hearing this, Damien turned pale. He hurriedly asked, did you hear anything bad about me? Damien didn't want his crush to know the dark secrets of his preschool days. Just thinking about it, his entire dark history flashed before his eyes. It was no longer a secret. But Anya knew how to read the room. She replied that she hadn't heard anything special. However, this answer was like a knife cutting into Damien's heart because it meant his mother didn't care about him at all. Damien sadly turned away. He blamed himself because it turned out Anya was no different from other mediocre people, just a swarm of flies looking to cling to the Desmond family's fame. That's not true, Anya's family is much more serious. And so, the two kids started another mindless argument. To win people's hearts, Anya still had a lot to learn from her father, Loid. Everyone knows Loid Forger is outwardly a psychiatrist deeply loved by patients and colleagues. But hidden beneath that mask, he is an undercover spy operating under the codename Twilight. Not to mention his fanatic admirer, Fiona Frost, codenamed Nightfall. This girl loves Loid to death because he is just too handsome. However, Loid's perfection made the chief of therapy, Gerald Gorey, jealous. Gerald was a man who climbed to his high position thanks to nepotism, so he valued fame and power immensely. He constantly complained that since Loid arrived, he had stolen all the spotlight in the hospital. And so, Gerald began to play dirty tricks to sabotage Loid. One day, Loid and Fiona were chatting about joining the Lady Patriots Society to extract more information. Loid asked Fiona if any of the hospital's patients were relatives of Melinda, Damien's mother. Fiona replied yes, but they were all VIP patients, and the therapy for this group of clients was arranged by Chief Gerald. He certainly wouldn't hand over such sweet deals to Loid, the man who had been causing him pain for months. Loid had a bit of a headache. He knew full well that Gerald had held a grudge against him since day one. Loid had tried to flatter him a few times, but to no avail. He had to ask Fiona to think of a way to help him win Gerald over. As soon as she left the room, Fiona was on cloud 9 because she got to talk to her senior, Loid, for a whole minute and 42 seconds. Behind them, Gerald was trembling. He silently cursed Loid for daring to touch his crush. The hatred grew, and he resolved to make Loid disappear from the hospital. First, Gerald secretly altered the schedule on the whiteboard, causing Loid to arrive half an hour late for a meeting. Loid saw right through this trick, but to let Gerald gloat, he decided to play along a bit. Gerald gleefully thought that this time, Loid's image in the eyes of his colleagues would surely collapse. But in reality, they only comforted him and worried about Loid's health because he had been working too hard. Plan A failed, so Gerald switched to Plan B, putting laxatives in the coffee and inviting Loid to drink it to wake up. Loid thought to himself, well, I have to drink it, I'll just make an antidote later. He even acted the part, pretending to have a stomachache while examining a newly admitted pediatric patient. Unexpectedly, the child saw Loid struggling against the abdominal pain and was deeply inspired. Gerald couldn't believe his eyes. He had once accidentally farted and was sued for damages, yet why was this guy safe and sound despite having a stomachache? Life was truly unfair. Coming out of the restroom, Loid intentionally left a strip of toilet paper stuck to his pants. But the female nurses just saw a clumsy Loid and thought he looked even more adorable. Gerald collapsed in defeat. Is appearance that important? For Plan C, he forged a love letter from Loid to Fiona, hoping she would blindly believe it, go to the meeting spot, and get stood up. At that point, Gerald would have the opportunity to comfort Fiona and spread rumors that Loid was a player flirting around despite having a wife and child. Fiona, hating the sin but loving the sinner, couldn't help but be happy even though she knew the letter was fake. Why is Senior Loid's handwriting so ugly? If it were anyone else, I definitely couldn't stand it and would beat the guy up. Senior Loid is so generous, he truly is my dream lover. Afterward, Gerald decided to go big. This time, he decided to call the State Security Service, SSS, to report a spy in the hospital. The secret police quickly arrived to coordinate the investigation. They told Gerald to act discreetly so the suspect wouldn't escape. Gerald was annoyed. He just wanted to see Loid arrested in front of everyone, his reputation vanishing into thin air, not do this sneaky stuff. But now, he had to cooperate with the police. Then, Gerald led the two officers to Loid's office. The police quickly found the fake evidence Gerald had planted earlier. He could barely suppress a smile. The documents were full of patient information and clinical trial results for new drugs. There is reason to suspect Loid has been leaking these documents to neighboring countries. The police approached Loid and, without a word, handcuffed him. Gerald, observing secretly, almost jumped for joy because his target was finally being eliminated. At this moment, Loid acted panicked. He whispered, "What are you doing? The plan didn't say you had to act this real." It turned out that these two secret police officers were Frankie in disguise and the other was a perfectly disguised Fiona. Gerald's tip-off call had been intercepted by them halfway. The three decided to beat him at his own game and put on a show in front of the old man. Faced with the evidence, Loid acted deep, denying all responsibility. He asked where they found these things. Fiona immediately pulled Gerald out as a witness. The guy stammered, explaining that he also trusted Loid, but since Loid was so well loved despite being new, he suspected Loid was a spy skilled at manipulating people. On this point, his guess wasn't wrong. However, Loid sadly replied that he only wanted to quickly integrate with those around him. Furthermore, the font on these documents was different from his typewriter. The only person in the entire hospital who uses this old font is Chief Gerald. Now it was Gerald's turn to freeze. Frankie pulled out a gun-shaped lighter and demanded Gerald state his full name. Then, he listed a barrage of Gerald's bad habits that he had heard from Loid. Now the police suspect he is the spy. "We require you to come to the station so we can investigate this clearly." Loid stepped in to save the day. He said, even if the chief actually did those silly things, he is absolutely not a traitor selling out his country. He is a reliable superior who knows how to care for others. Thanks to the chief, I can work here with peace of mind. He is a treasure, the ray of hope for our hospital. If you want to arrest him, then arrest me too. A speech that went straight into the earth but made Gerald cry like rain. The police pretended to believe his words and temporarily removed him from the spy suspect list. It made the chief completely take his hat off to Loid. With Loid comforting him on one side, and the other side saying, "If there is anything you need help with, please entrust it to me," for example, treating VIP patients, the guy resolved the relationship crisis with his boss neatly. At the same time, he consolidated the foundation for the next plan. Overhearing that Operation Strix had made new progress, Anya felt pressured. She also wanted to win over people's hearts like her dad and quickly become good friends with Damien. A few days later, Eden Academy organized a field trip to the museum for the students. Everyone boarded the bus with excitement. On the bus, Anya imagined a scenario to win Damien's favor. Suppose he called her ugly and told the teacher to expel her. The teacher would come closer, compare them, and discover that Anya was cuter than anyone, while Damien was the ugly one with an impure soul. The teacher would surely expel Damien. At that moment, Anya would step up to defend him. Damien isn't ugly, he's just a jerk. That doesn't affect the development of the nation. Helping him escape the crisis of expulsion, Damien would surely be incredibly grateful to her. Visiting the second son's house would then just be a matter of time. Thinking of this, Anya balled up a piece of paper and threw it at Damien's head. She pretended to wait for him to call her ugly, but life is not a dream. Damien didn't understand what Anya was doing. Are you annoyed because I haven't paid the debt yet? Fine, I'll just give you the cake to get it over with. However, the box of cakes meant for his crush was spotted by his lackeys. Out of pride, Damien had to share it with them. As for Anya, she also brought all sorts of snacks, salted peanuts, cheese peanuts, and a single pellet of dog food peanut. Hey Damien, want some? Damien snapped, do you have a death wish, you weirdo? During their noisy argument, an unexpected incident occurred. Instead of turning into the museum, the bus drove straight ahead without slowing down. Of the 3 buses, 2 had veered off course. The driver on the bus tried to ignore the teacher's warnings. He stopped not far away to pick up a man and a woman. The man in front didn't say much. He pulled out a stun gun and took down the teacher on the bus. The screams of students rang out, causing chaos in the area. At the same time, his accomplices also seized control of the other bus. Eden Academy's security staff immediately drove a car to chase them. The man calmly walked to the back of the bus, drew a gun, and opened the door. He announced that he was a member of the extremist organization Red Circus, a group once destroyed by the West. Now, the remnants hiding abroad had returned, and unfortunately, Anya had become his hostage. This is perhaps the most dangerous moment in Anya's life. A notorious hijacker has strapped a remote-controlled bomb around the little girl's neck. Just one foolish move, and Anya's head will instantly be blown away. In a situation hanging by a thread, what will Anya do to turn the tables? Meanwhile, news of the bus hijacking is quickly reported to the school. The school administration immediately contacts the police to request support for the situation. However, to avoid causing further trouble, the police request that they temporarily refrain from notifying all the parents. On that fateful bus, the kids are crying miserably, their faces turning green with fear. Their chaotic inner thoughts are causing the Esper Anya to nearly overload. Just then, Big Boss Bill, sitting next to her, stands up. He tries to reassure everyone with a booming voice, among us, most of our parents are big shots. My dad is a major in the army command, he is definitely mobilizing a massive army to rescue us. Hearing this, the hijacker points his gun straight at Bill's face and orders him to shut up. He knows full well that the bus is full of scions from prominent families. That is the reason he is using the children as trump cards to negotiate terms with the government. At the Wise Intelligence Agency headquarters, the handler Sylvia has grasped the situation. Initially, she did not care much, assuming it was the government's private affair. But upon learning that Anya and the son of the target, Donovan Desmond, were also on the bus, she immediately switches to serious work mode. The situation on the bus is incredibly tense. The group has to rack their brains to figure out a way to send a distress signal. At the very least, they need to know where this bus is heading so reinforcements know where to go. Anya tries to use her mind-reading hack, but the hijackers are only thinking idle thoughts, providing no useful information. The little girl decides to go big, exclaiming that she needs to pee and can't hold it anymore. She even emphasizes that she really doesn't know where they are going, but if they don't hurry, she will wet her pants right there. This action not only interrupts the hijacker's train of thought but also successfully leads the accomplice driving the bus to mentally review the entire plan. Thanks to that, Anya hears that they will travel along Route 1 to Papier Palace Park. Anya immediately whispers to Becky. She bluffs that she learned lip reading from a spy cartoon, which is how she knows the hijacker's intentions. Now they must think of a way to contact the outside world. In spy movies, they often write secret signals on small rolls of film. Anya tries to imitate this, intending to write the current situation on paper and throw it out the window. However, her handwriting is like chicken scratch, anyone who didn't know better would think they were reading an ancient alien code. Well, leave the difficult task to the beautiful Becky. Becky writes the Black Bell family's signature distress signal on paper. She also cleverly clips her student ID to it so passers-by won't mistake it for trash. Damien sees the 2 girls acting suspiciously and throws a note warning them not to do anything foolish. But after learning the plan, Damien decides to personally attract the hijackers' attention to create an opportunity for the 2 girls to execute their plan. I am Damien of the Desmond family. I'm about to poop my pants. Stop the car before that happens. The hijacker thinks to himself, are Eden students nowadays all such brats? While Damien is carrying the team, Anya summons all her strength to throw the box containing the information out the window. The hijacker notices something unusual, but it is too late. Furious, he grabs Anya and straps a bomb around her neck. Watch and learn, you brats. If you dare pull a stunt like that again, I won't hesitate to attach a few more bombs and blow you all up at once. The hijacker's fierce threat makes the whole group turn pale. Anya breaks out in a cold sweat. This time, she is truly doomed. Meanwhile, Becky's distress signal is quickly discovered. Becky's family relays the message to the city security bureau. The chief believes that if there are casualties, the media will surely make a huge fuss, and the police won't be able to maintain their image before the public. He orders an information blackout and prioritizes the elimination of the criminals. This time, the entire force must be mobilized and execute the operation skillfully. Yuri, working at the bureau, also receives the news. However, because his niece Anya would recognize his face, his superiors order him not to go to the scene and strictly forbid him from notifying family and relatives. Yuri initially thinks the life of that guy Loid's daughter has nothing to do with him, but he quickly realizes that if anything happens to Anya, his beloved sister will surely suffer extreme grief. Regarding this matter alone, he cannot sit by and ignore it. Elsewhere, Becky's father, upon hearing that his little princess is in danger, flies into a rage. He orders the mobilization of all military forces to rescue the bus, casually involving just a few fighter jets and a dozen tanks. The butler, Martha, has to knock him on the head to restore his calm. Do you want to level the whole city, old man? That will only provoke them. I will personally go down to the streets to resolve this matter. Back on the bus, the bomb plunges everyone into despair, but Anya is quickly trolled by the hijacker's thoughts for the second time. It turns out the thing dangling from her neck is just a fake used to scare children. Anya breathes a sigh of relief and casually sits back down as if nothing happened. Becky and Damien are frozen. Does this girl have nerves of steel, or is she just too used to such scenes? Why can she be so calm? Damien can't help but suspect. Could Anya have been raised by a notorious assassin? Oblivious to Damien's speculations, Anya feels a bit elated. This is a chance to flex to her crush. However, Anya's reckless action causes the other students to scold and curse her continuously. The little girl is nearly overwhelmed by the chaotic noise. Damien thinks Anya was just trying to act tough earlier and that her fear is her true face now. So, he steps up to the hijacker once again, suggesting he transfer the bomb to his own neck. I am the son of the chairman of the National Unity Party, a man of the Desmond family. I will shoulder the responsibility of protecting the country in the future. So taking the place of that little girl as a hostage is not up for discussion. You'd better put that bomb on my neck. The hijacker acknowledges the boy's bravery. He pulls out a second bomb and says this is a reward for Damien's determination, one for each of them, no need to fight over it. Damien now feels incredibly stupid. But hey, these are matching items, right Damien? He is about to get angry, but upon reflection, if he is to be a leader, he must protect everyone equally, even a fool like Anya. Damien feels more scared than ever once the bomb is around his neck. He truly realizes he might never return to a normal life. To prove the bomb is fake, Anya keeps patting it provocatively. While Becky and Damien are loudly protesting, the bus suddenly explodes. It loses control and nearly flips over in the middle of the road. Fortunately, the explosion wasn't from the bomb but because the bus ran over a spike strip. Sirens wail in the distance. The police have finally arrived. The hijackers are furious, unable to understand how the police knew their destination. Even more headache-inducing, the security bureau has also appeared from another direction. They know the bureau's style well. Saving hostages means nothing to them. The ringleader orders the students to cover the windows to avoid snipers. He then drags Damien to the door in a chokehold, warning the police not to make any sudden moves. He demands the government fulfill two conditions. First, release 17 members of the Red Circus gang from prison. Second, transport them and the 17 released prisoners to Nautica for safe asylum. For every prisoner released, he will release 5 students. The ringleader demands the police have a plane ready. If they want a safe resolution, they had better cooperate. After speaking, he slams the door shut and climbs back up to discuss with his accomplices. While the police hesitate, the security bureau proposes taking over the entire operation. They have no intention of negotiating with terrorists and plan to suppress them with force immediately. If they concede, the terrorists will give an inch and take a mile. How can they endanger the entire country for the sake of a few dozen lives? Moreover, most of the prisoners the ringleader mentioned have already died in prison. The robbers have commandeered 2 buses. Wise agents are everywhere. Someone has discovered the route of the remaining bus. Sylvia immediately leaks the information to the authorities anonymously. At this moment at the security bureau, Yuri is tied up in a corner for being too impulsive. Hearing that the second bus has appeared in his familiar sector, he immediately begs to assist in the case. Yuri has been stationed in that area for many years. After all, he has quite a few eyes and ears there. He believes the robbers are definitely hiding people and that the bus will be found sooner or later. This battle is not just for the students, but also for his sister's happiness. How will it end? Let's wait for the next part together. This is perhaps the most reckless moment in Anya's life. Facing the hijacker who intends to press the button to blow up the entire bus, the little girl shows no fear, boldly stepping up to him and using her persuasive verbal skills to soften his heart. How does the story unfold? Let's continue following the thrilling developments of this anime, Spy X Family. As mentioned in the previous episode, thanks to the clues that Anya and Becky risked their lives to send, the police and the National Security Service quickly appeared and intercepted bus number 1, which is holding the students hostage. Headquarters ordered the Security Service patrol team to temporarily hold off on the attack. They must find the whereabouts of bus 2 before they can make the next decision. On the bus, the ringleader in the red shirt seems gentler than everyone imagined. Seeing the children needing to relieve themselves, he allows one student at a time to get off the bus and run to the bushes on the other side. Meanwhile, Becky's father and the butler, Martha, have arrived at the scene. Mr. Henry, representing Eden Academy, also appears. It turns out he and Martha knew each other from before. Moreover, their relationship seems to be something out of the ordinary. Both are worried about the students. If this drags on for a few more days, the children's mental and physical health will be greatly affected. To ensure the safety of the hostages, the police propose providing food for the students. Billy agrees immediately, but he only allows one staff member from Eden Academy to bring the items onto the bus. Becky's father, out of love for his daughter, suggests sending delicacies, but Martha dismisses the idea. She believes doing so would only provoke the hijackers. They decide to send only some dry rations produced by the Black Bell Group. Regarding the delivery person, it is better for the police not to use a disguise. Just following the hijackers' demands will ensure everything goes smoothly. Mr. Henry immediately volunteers himself. He really wants to go in and reassure the children because, after all, he is the homeroom teacher of this class. As soon as he gets on the bus, Mr. Henry causes a commotion because the kids rush out crying incessantly. To avoid provoking the hijackers, he hurriedly advises everyone to calm down. Mr. Austin, who took a bullet right at the beginning, looks unstable, so Henry suggests switching places so his colleague can get off the bus for treatment. Just like that, Mr. Henry also becomes one of the threatened hostages. Seeing the children showing disgust at the dinner, he says that even though it's not tasty, they must try to eat as much as possible to keep their strength up while waiting. Seeing Anya, who still has a bomb wrapped around her neck, eating deliciously, Mr. Henry cannot help but admire the little girl. She truly has nerves of steel. He recalls the admission interview where Anya said she would forge her spirit to overcome situations hanging by a thread. It turns out the little brat wasn't bluffing back then. While the group is eating heartily, Mr. Henry plays the family card with Billy. He asks if he has children and, if he knows the feelings of a parent, to please release the children because they are innocent. Unexpectedly, this remark touches Billy's painful spot. He once had an extremely beautiful daughter. During her school days, she enthusiastically participated in protests organized by the Red Circus. Her main goal was simply to protect the rights of the weak in society. As a father, Billy did not want his child involved in such things, but his daughter said she was not afraid to sacrifice for her ideals. Living in a world where one cannot speak the truth is what is truly scary. In the end, Billy's daughter died in a violent crackdown by a government faction. From that day on, anger and the desire for revenge became Billy's meaning of life. He wants the upper class to taste what it feels like to lose a child. Anya overheard all these thoughts. Elsewhere, Yuri has found the warehouse where bus number 2 is hiding. Special Task Force 2 of the Security Service quickly assembles. They use tear gas grenades for cover and neutralize those resisting. The ringleader of bus number 2 tries to flee but is caught by Yuri. He turns back and shoots Yuri in the shoulder, but Yuri only stumbles slightly before delivering a finishing blow, rendering the opponent completely incapable of fighting. After the fierce combat, Yuri screams as if the sky is falling while treating his wound. It turns out that without the motivation of his sister Anya, this guy's pain tolerance is almost non-existent. News of the victory from bus number 2 is quickly reported to the scene. The success of the security service proves they are capable of handling the rest, so the police are forced to hand over command at bus number 1. Before acting, the commander of the security service shouts into a loudspeaker, trying to make it look like they want a peaceful resolution. Listen, your accomplices on the other bus have been cleaned up by us. If you don't want a similar end, surrender obediently. We will only wait until dawn, comply well to receive leniency. Hearing this, Billy looks devastated. He seems to know he is doomed, but the accomplice driving the bus still wants to fight to the death. Commander Billy's will wavers. He even considers detonating the real bomb to destroy the entire place. Reading the madman's thoughts, Anya trembles. Even more surprisingly, she hears the inner thoughts of many undercover police officers outside. It turns out the security service has no intention of waiting until dawn. They plan to attack right now under the cover of night. The situation is as tense as a violin string. At this rate, everyone will be wiped out. Anya knows she must do something to solve the problem. She leaves her seat and walks up to the hijackers, intending to speak but not knowing what to say. If she says there are many muscular men about to rush in, the hijackers might blow up the bus. That's right, if someone outside brings food up again, could this interrupt the attack plan? So, Anya shouts, I'm so hungry, I want to eat a lot of delicious food. Billy snaps, you have some nerve. If you don't want your head blown off, get back to your seat immediately. But this doesn't scare Anya since she knows the bomb is a fake. She retorts, Anya is not afraid. Having to die without being able to say anything is much scarier. This sentence reminds Billy of his last conversation with his daughter. Seeing the resilient shadow of his daughter in Anya, Billy removes the bomb from Anya's neck and orders her to get off the bus alone immediately. He cannot let Anya be further involved in this. Realizing the commander has wavered, Anya pushes her advantage, I'm not getting off. I want to eat more dry rations. Billy is dumbfounded hearing this. In his impression, rich kids are all selfish people who only care about themselves. But Damien, the boy willing to sacrifice himself to protect everyone, and the little girl in front of him crying loudly, are beyond his predictions. Is Anya's family really so hard up that they have nothing to eat? Would she rather be blown up by a bomb than starve? Or are all the students at Eden Academy this dirt poor? Is Astania's economy that bad? He realizes he might just be imposing his own thoughts on the children. Billy asks Anya why she risks her life to save food for everyone like that. Anya thinks for a while and quotes her father Loid's motto, it is to create a world where children don't have to cry anymore. The reason is incredibly convincing. The accomplice cannot stand it, he asks if Billy has forgotten his daughter and points his gun at Anya. Mr. Henry rushes to shield her. Billy freezes. He suddenly realizes he seems to have truly forgotten the daughter of the past. She often went around feeding stray cats because she couldn't bear to see big cats stealing food from small ones. She returned home full of scratches every time. Billy advised his daughter that the animal world is survival of the fittest and she didn't need to interfere. But his daughter said she couldn't stand by when she saw someone being bullied. Wasn't it you who taught me that, Dad? Give instead of take, help instead of dragging others down, you taught me these things. That's why I feel very proud of what I've done. If his daughter were alive, she certainly wouldn't want to see him in this state. Billy just couldn't let go of the anger, let go of the meaning of life that had held him for so long. Thinking of this, Billy snatches the gun from his accomplice, grabs the suitcase full of explosives, and gets off the bus to surrender himself. He cannot let his daughter die again, he still wants to continue being the father his daughter was proud of. The driver is utterly disappointed, he immediately slams on the gas, trying to break through the encirclement. Fortunately, the police had positioned an armored vehicle to block the bus. Still refusing to give up, he grabs Anya, using her as a shield to run outside. But the security service ignores the hostage and opens fire, eliminating the hijacker. Anya's time has finally come, everyone. This is the moment she suddenly becomes a youth idol sought after by thousands. Not only that, our Anya also received a prestigious Stella Star, officially upgrading to double Starlight Anya as the star shines brightly in the sky. At this rate, the Desmond family might have to personally come to the Forger house to ask for parenting tips. Continuing the tense events of the previous episode, after the hijackers were caught, the battlefield cleanup was gradually handled by the police. The most worried people at this moment were none other than the parents of the children on the bus. The next day, for students Anya Forger, Damien Desmond, Becky Blackbell, and Bill Watkins were commended before the whole school. The four of them contributed significantly to helping everyone resolve yesterday's kidnapping incident. Their calmness, quick wit, and mutual support in facing danger were truly something to be proud of. To honor that, the four officially received Stella Stars amidst the enthusiastic applause of all the students. While everyone was emotional, Damien felt he didn't do anything to deserve the reward, but if not for his "I'm about to poop my pants" plan, the group would have had a hard time escaping. The press even offered to conduct interviews, but the homeroom teacher, Mr. Henry, refused for the safety of the children. In reality, the security bureau was afraid of having their credit stolen, so they had subtly warned him from the start. But truly, the fact that not a single student was injured in that horrific event was nothing short of a miracle. Looking back at last night, after being escorted down by the police, every child cried out upon seeing their parents. Damien felt a surge of emotion when the fake bomb was removed from his neck, and he was even personally praised by a police officer as a brave boy. It warmed his heart, but he reminded himself, I am a son of the Desmond family, not a normal kid like people say, this is no big deal to be crying and scared about. The scene below was quite chaotic, Becky and her father were hugging and crying like rain, and all the parents were teary-eyed seeing their children return safely. Amidst that touching scene, Anya still looked super chill, just standing there watching the people pass by. She glanced to the side and saw the second son. This young man was still feeling embarrassed remembering the scene where his crush held his hand to encourage him earlier. He mumbled an apology for constantly teasing her before. Anya was surprisingly formidable today, unexpectedly, because she was so excited, she complimented him back. She said that when he demanded to exchange the bomb, he looked as cool as Superman. Damien blushed, claiming that helping friends is just the obvious thing to do. Hearing the word friends, Anya immediately tried to push her luck, wanting to take a step further. She secretly rejoiced because the friendship campaign was finally successful. Anya casually announced that tomorrow she would bring her whole family to his house for a visit. Since they are best friends, they must introduce their parents to each other, right? Damien bristled immediately. Who considers you a best friend? Keep dreaming. In the end, you're just targeting the Desmond family name. But having said that, he thought to himself, even if you win me over, it's not certain you can get close to my parents. Just then, Anya arrived at breakneck speed after going everywhere to ask about the situation. The moment she saw her mother, Anya's innocent face disappeared. Although she is usually as tough as tungsten, when she met the person she felt she could rely on, her shell crumbled, revealing the weakness inside. For the first time in the entire series, everyone saw the little girl cry so loudly. This emotion was truly appropriate for the age of a child. Mr. Henry breathed a sigh of relief seeing that scene. This is how it should be. That iron-faced girl demanding food earlier just looked wrong somehow. At the same time, Anya suddenly heard Loid's inner thoughts. It turned out he had rushed back here immediately after completing his mission. Loid also wanted to run over to comfort her, but his identity as a spy did not allow him to reveal his emotions. Furthermore, since he had announced he was on a business trip, returning too quickly would surely make the security bureau suspicious. Instead, he decided that when he got home, he would cook a few delicious dishes to treat the mother and daughter to a feast. Anya informed Damien that his mother's car was on its way to pick him up. Just a few minutes prior, she had seen the madam, but because she was so worried about Anya, her patrol car had passed by without her realizing it. No sooner had she spoken than Mrs. Melinda arrived, rushing to her son's side. The boy finally couldn't hide his tears. He was shocked because he didn't expect his mother to come here for him. She apologized for being late. Anya read her thoughts and knew that in her head, Mrs. Melinda loved her son very much but didn't dare to show it, quite similar to her own Uncle Yuri. The second son cried while saying he wasn't afraid of anything, he was only sad because he didn't get to go to the museum. Damien begged her not to mention this to his father. Hearing this, Melinda's expression suddenly changed 180 degrees, her tone differing completely, demanding her son not tell that person that she had come here. But that was nothing compared to the chaotic thoughts in her head. Anya read it all, one moment thinking I shouldn't have come here, then wondering why didn't you just kick the bucket, then thanking God her son was safe, and then thinking my baby is so cute. This multi-personality mess made Anya question reality. Did the second son's mother just escape from a mental asylum? The next morning, little Anya hummed a song with the theme of self-praise for her 2 new stars while eating. Seeing this, her father Loid reminded her that receiving a Stella star is indeed something to be proud of, but recklessly confronting criminals just because she wanted to eat was not okay at all. Anya tried to apologize because she thought the breakfast she made wasn't nutritious enough, causing her daughter to be so hungry that she demanded the robbers pay tribute with food. Anya's family still looked quite carefree, but Loid knew that the event certainly had a significant impact on the little girl's mental state, so he decided to take care of his darling daughter very carefully. On the way to school, Anya complained that her dad's car was too old and beat up. This clunking warhorse was truly not as luxurious as Becky's family car. Anya had also tried riding in a police car the other day, and it zoomed much faster than this one. Loid apologized, realizing the little girl just wanted to tease him about not showing up the previous night. Right then, the little girl suddenly asked a rather strange question. If a friend gets picked up by their parents, that means the family loves each other very much, right? Loid confirmed that was absolutely correct. Anya fell into deep thought. She recalled Damien's words and the strange thoughts in his mother's head. They truly were a weird family. Loid saw Anya looking sad and thought she was still holding a grudge about the previous day, so he felt guilty. Anya read that thought and hurriedly seized the opportunity to say she craved cake so her dad would comfort her. Loid promised to buy a lot after school. The plan to beg for treats was a resounding success. Arriving at school, Anya surprisingly discovered she had become an idol loved by thousands. Classmates surrounded her to apologize for bad-mouthing her. They endlessly asked, "Weren't you scared of the bomb, and how did you persuade the criminal?" She acted like she was enjoying it like an A-list star, chin held high as if she were the best in the world. Although she was just a commoner. Anya's heat didn't cool down, on the contrary, it made the other rich kids open their eyes in admiration and curiosity about her abilities. Seeing Damien criticize her as being goofy, Becky immediately teased him, saying, "Oh my, is the boy getting jealous today?" Now that everyone realized Anya's charm, at this rate, she might be snatched away by someone else. Hearing that, Damien's heart skipped a beat, but he hurriedly reassured himself not to think about the shorty. From there, he deliberately criticized Anya as just a lowly commoner who actually just screamed loudly, and he didn't understand why the criminal surrendered unconditionally. But those criticisms only added more aura to her. The group of friends admired Anya more than ever when she recounted that commoner life meant eating food cooked by mom. Damien's 2 henchmen immediately mocked her as a hick. But unexpectedly, their big boss had also just eaten rice cooked by his own mother's hands. He gently defended her because the food Melinda cooked was better than any other dish. Looking back at Yu's food, at that level, even a dog would shake its head and dare not try. At this moment, Anya suddenly came up with a genius plan. Since asking to visit Damien's house had always failed before, today Anya wanted to go big. She decided to invite her crush to her house to learn about the tough life of a commoner. This plan was called Plan B Reversed, and Anya was very proud of it. She even deliberately spoke loudly for Damien to hear about how every day she had to risk her life eating his horror dishes, and how having to train to become a strong child who doesn't cry was truly exhausting. From being forced by her dad to do homework like a demon to carrying cumbersome items at the supermarket, she kept rambling on. Becky felt it wasn't good that her friend started making things up and feared she would be seen as a liar, so she hurriedly saved the day by revealing the secret that Anya's strength was thanks to her mother's training. Anya thought Becky was trying to push her fame over to Ya, so seeing everyone constantly asking to visit her home for instruction, she bluffed that her mom currently had a broken neck and needed to rest for a few days. But wait, broken neck but still alive? She must definitely be Superman. When Damien told everyone to stop, claiming that associating with Anya would only disgrace their families, the Chihuahua girl completely forgot her original purpose. She turned around, assuming Damien was also planning to suppress her popularity, so she didn't hesitate to collide with him head-on. Seeing their big boss return to his usual self, the henchmen cheered more enthusiastically out of joy. But when Damien tried to insult her his short legs, Anya teared up, looking incredibly pitiful. Seeing this, the friends thought Damien's family must be more powerful to make Anya cry. Finally, Anya couldn't control herself and screamed out, "Anya is the strongest. Anya wants to conquer the world like Papa." It seemed victory was tilting toward Damien. But no, our boy couldn't stand the sight of his friend crying. So he apologized and even promised to bring sweets next time to make up for his words, astonishing all the friends around them. What do people call this case? Even a king must yield to a maiden's tears. Damien knew how to turn defeat into victory, but that competitive pink-haired goofball argued back. And just like that, the two sides escalated the tension again. Carrying over the vibe from the previous episode, Anya, after her moment of flexing her double save, thought she had climbed to the peak of fame with her Stella star. However, unexpectedly, in just a fleeting moment, she had to return to square one as a commoner because her friends firmly believed that a crybaby was not worthy of being an idol. Well, since the aura is gone, the screen time today asks permission to be yielded to the unstable couple, Loid and Anya. Bearing the titles of spy husband and assassin wife, yet these two still date like a couple of high school sweethearts experiencing puppy love for the first time. They haven't even tried a slight peck on the lips. Ya has fully loaded up on alcohol today. But will she seize the opportunity this time to pin her husband down for a forced kiss, or does she just want to send Loid to the afterlife in the name of peace? Will the two have passionate moments, or will they go through a life or death battle that makes Anya scream? What are we waiting for? Let's get into the main events of Spy X Family Episode 10. Opening the scene is Loid's story. Today, he encounters a difficult medical case. It is none other than the resident tutor of Eden Academy, Thomas. After the horrific bus hijacking, he took a taser shot and immediately rolled over and fainted. The teacher seems to be suffering from a condition called post-traumatic stress that he has never experienced before. Every night he has nightmares, his hands and feet keep trembling, causing his wife to constantly nag about the uselessness of her husband who is over 50. Following a recommendation, the teacher sought out the psychiatrist Loid with the hope that everything would end. Loid is truly an expert in this field, from the very first meeting. He unleashed his empathy skill, trying to comfort Thomas that the obsession following such a horrific event is just a natural reaction and he doesn't need to be ashamed of it. Loid even shared that his own daughter was present during the incident, so he sympathizes greatly. Having his itch scratched, Thomas seemed to shed some of the burden. He began to recount his nightmares and symptoms like fatigue, heart palpitations, and trembling legs, not to mention being much more irritable than usual. However, Loid realized the old man seemed to be hiding the exact time these symptoms appeared. It seems there is still some hidden complication he cannot speak of. A few days later, the teacher came for a follow-up, but the situation remained bleak. The nightmares were increasing. Not only that, but his wife also refused to sympathize and kept cursing him. Loid, being sharp, caught the keyword wife and immediately asked about his current marital situation. The teacher tried to dodge the question, fearing his wife would discover his weakness and utter harsh words, but Loid had checked the facts thoroughly and knew everything. It turned out that Thomas's symptoms actually appeared several months before the robbery, meaning that the robbery was not the main cause of the illness. Confess, are you afraid of that mysterious creature we usually call a wife? Upon hearing this, the teacher immediately jumped up and screamed in agony. He could not accept the truth that, compared to terrorists, he was now more afraid of his own wife. It turns out everything stemmed from the tigress he is keeping in his house. Right now, to me, the roof, the wife, is 10,000 times scarier than robbers. He fears the disappointed face and that long, heavy sigh the most. Every time he sees that unpleasant expression on his wife's face, his blood pressure spikes. He would rather go to jail and live with robbers than go home and face his wife. Loid listened and thought, is that it? A problem as small as a rabbit. He advised the teacher to communicate with his wife more sincerely. The teacher begged off, just seeing his wife sigh makes him freeze up stiff. So what kind of communication is possible at this point, doctor? But fair is fair, Thomas is also quite a troublemaker in his marriage, not just an innocent victim. Loid investigated for ages only to find out the guy constantly ditches his wife, repeatedly bails on wedding anniversaries, refuses to do housework, refuses to take care of the kids, and throws dirty socks around, making the whole area stink. He completely ignores mother-in-law and daughter-in-law issues. 2. It's a blessing he hasn't been physically assaulted to the point of hospitalization yet. If his wife only sighs and he's already traumatized, then it's hopeless. Loid just wanted to exclaim, "You're living your life all wrong, sir," but the problem is the guy is the patient and he is the doctor, so he couldn't say that. So Loid, with the experience of a family man, began a remedial class on love. He wanted to share the secrets to keeping the marriage flame alive that he regularly applies. Loid suggested the teacher try to recall the sweet memories from when he first met his wife. He advised that at home, the teacher must always be cautious, observe every gesture, breathing speed, blink frequency, and even the sound of the footsteps of the boss of the house to predict her mood. Furthermore, he must clearly recognize his role in the family and start changing from the smallest things. The result? The teacher lay there remembering, and his face drained of every drop of blood, imagining only horrific scenarios. The teacher said he had tried everything, but every time he planned to talk to his wife, he would tremble so much he couldn't even speak a complete sentence. Loid decided to help him resolve this trauma first. He asked the teacher to lie down, close his eyes, and recall an experience that made him afraid of his wife. After many therapy sessions with Loid's help, the teacher was finally able to slowly talk to his wife. But thinking back, it was all self-inflicted. Who else is to blame? If he just calmly resolved things like Loid, what wife wouldn't like that? Rewind to the Berlin City Hall. Colleagues have recently felt that Anya has changed a lot. Before, to hide her assassin identity, she always kept a distance from them. Currently, to perfectly play the role of a normal person, she takes the initiative to chat, share work tasks, and even go drinking with the sisters after hours. Seeing the blonde lady, Camilla, buried in deadlines, Anya volunteered to help. Camilla heard this and was moved to tears, not expecting that in this life of selling one's soul to capitalism, there would still be such a kind colleague. Plus one respect for the dear sister. Thanks to their combined efforts, the work was quickly completed. Just then, the bespectacled friend Sharon invited everyone to dinner. And of course, Camilla and Millie had to foot the bill for this round. Hearing the invitation, Anya shyly agreed, but she remembered she had to call and report to her roof, Loid, that she wouldn't be coming home for dinner. Camilla was like, "Cut it out with the dog food, please, beautiful." But no one expected that Anya, with a little alcohol in her system, would be absolute comedy gold. With just one glass in her belly, Anya, the person with the weakest alcohol tolerance, started showing signs of tearing the roof down. Everyone at the drinking table was waiting for Anya to expose her husband, as bad-mouthing husbands is a passion of the sisterhood. But thinking it over and over, Loid is too perfect, too psychological, too VIP pro level. Anya concluded that my husband has no weak points, he is truly a national husband, you couldn't find one like him even if you searched Google. The sisters listened and thought she was lying, a person that perfect never exists according to their experience. Marriage is the tomb of love, there's bound to be a thorn in the husband's eye. If he's that perfect, it's only fraud or gold digging. It sounds reasonable, but the ladies didn't know that Anya herself was also deceiving her husband. Seeing the sisters spitting pearls and jade criticizing their husbands, saying that when provoked by their other halves, thoughts of killing intent arise in their heads, hoping to stab them a few times, Anya started to feel out of place. Huh? Do I also have to badmouth my husband to fit in? Thinking this, Anya's brain suddenly clicked. It turns out normal people turn into assassins after dating or marriage. I was an assassin before getting married, so that's definitely not normal. No, I have to pretend that I only became an assassin after marriage. Thinking of this, Anya's brain, prone to overthinking, started misfiring all over the place. She began to bluff, launching into a speech that occasionally she also has the intention of sending Loid back to Mother Earth. The more Anya tried to explain, the more her colleagues thought she was flexing her love in a disguised way. To prove it, she downed a glass of beer for courage and then grabbed a knife and charged straight outside. On the way, her brain conjured up all sorts of scenarios. She imagined meeting the shopkeeper and asking to assassinate Loid, to maintain married life, that was mandatory. Then she thought about how she had to take care of Loid just because an egg roll wasn't sweet. To prove she was a post-marriage assassin. Everyone was made to laugh by Anya's reaction. Alright, hurry home and be romantic with your husband. I bet she'll go home and demand kisses and even a shower with her husband. Anya overheard something about what to do when a couple is angry. Ah, it seems to be kissing, she absorbed immediately. Turns out kissing is the welcome home ritual. Anya was both shy and angry, her hands and feet waving continuously, leaving after images. Her colleagues didn't understand, kissing at home is normal, isn't it? Anya felt completely devastated. Is this really a normal thing? Although I don't quite get it, I feel shaken. Do I really have to pin Loid down and kiss him when I get home? Carrying that bold and stimulating thought, Yuri returned home. Seeing his wife return, Loid properly came out to welcome her immediately, but what struck his eyes was Anya with a face red as a beetroot and a body burning hot. Loid, with his sharp spy thinking, was completely wrong and thought you was feeling unwell or sulking about something. Yeah, at this moment, had her head spinning, looking at Loid and debating, kiss or kill or kiss, so shy, she pursed her lips wanting to speak but stopped. Finally, she couldn't win against her own shyness and almost fainted. Loid hurriedly caught Anya, asking if she had drunk too much. And so, Anya self-directed, self-acted, used her own power on herself. And then self-destructed. Her level of steaming was truly unrivaled under the heavens. The noise outside the room woke Anya up. Parents are loving each other too loudly. Recently, news about the space race between the two countries has been booming. One of Damien's lackeys is a space fanatic, but the other two understand nothing about the romance of the cosmos. Talking to them is like playing a lute to a buffalo. Who would have guessed that day at school, the whole gang saw Anya running around holding a paper airplane, simulating a rocket landing on the moon. It turns out the little girl had been transmitted the spirit of adventure from the space news. The lackey heard this and excitedly came out to chat with Anya. The two hit it off very well. Damien immediately flew into a jealous rage. Hey idiot, who let you talk to that girl immersed in her space drama? Anya completely ignored the words of Damien's second sidekick. Next time you want extra points, remember to speak louder, okay? Anya could never have imagined this. She thought her drunkenness and oversleeping would make her husband despise her. To her surprise, the next morning, Loid not only refrained from blaming her but, on the contrary, kindly asked if she needed any help. This, however, made Anya feel quite depressed because her friends had just told her that a normal couple should bicker at least a little. Thus, to blend into the life of ordinary people, she forced herself to pick a fight with Loid. But Loid was stumped, not knowing how to handle the situation. Her sudden anger was truly baffling. At that moment, the troublemaker brother-in-law, Yuri, kicked the door open and barged in. Seeing his sister in a heated verbal spat, Yuri jumped in to join the chaos. He had warned Loid before, if he ever made you cry or feel sad about their family life, he would never be forgiven. Seeing the intense situation, Yu was about to explain, but then she thought her bickering plan was about to succeed, so she continued to play the role, acting extremely furious. Unexpectedly, seeing this, Yuri's blood boiled even more. He bluntly told his sister to divorce Loid. If she felt too much pressure, she should just sign the papers and be done with it. Hearing this, Loid sensed a crisis brewing. This emergency would surely affect Operation Strix. He had to quickly mend his relationship with Anya, but Loid remained deeply confused. Clearly, he hadn't done anything wrong yesterday, yet today his wife was acting resentful. If he had to find a reason, it was very likely that when Anya went drinking with her colleagues, she had heard something negative about him. Perhaps even his identity as a spy had been discovered. At this point, Loid told himself to stay calm before clarifying everything. It was best to listen to Yuri and apologize to Anya first, hoping to save the family. Just then, the hospital suddenly called Fiona, reporting an emergency for a patient with code number 1399. This was actually a secret signal for a top-level spy mission. Realizing the situation was dire, Loid immediately geared up, completely ignoring the baseless outburst from his boss wife, Anya. He left only a brief apology and slammed the door, rushing to the hospital. At this time, Anya thought proudly to herself that such a fight would definitely make Yuri believe they were a normal couple. But our troublemaker didn't think so. Instead, he believed that Loid's hurried departure meant he was definitely going to meet a mistress. He urged his sister to quickly follow him to catch him red-handed. The atmosphere suddenly grew somber. Yuri secretly calculated that if things went according to plan, he could throw that bastard Loid into prison this very day. He also wanted to take this opportunity to perform a proper scene. That way, in the eyes of outsiders, they would be the most normal couple in the world. So, the two siblings agreed to disguise themselves and began tailing Loid. As it turned out, they had barely followed him for 5 minutes when Yuri received an urgent mission from his superior. He lied, saying he had to return to the office to submit important documents, and then ditched Anya, leaving her to follow her husband alone. This made Anya fume with frustration, not knowing what to do. At the same time, Loid had also realized someone was following him. What on earth did those two siblings want? Seeing Yuri leave, he speculated that the Estonian State Security Service had also started taking action, so he had to quickly return to the hospital to perform his mission. A while later, Anya followed him for a long distance but didn't see Loid meeting any other woman. The plan to catch him cheating officially failed. This left her a bit disappointed, but then she felt happy again because, after all, a family without a mistress is a perfect one. Although Loid didn't understand what Anya was trying to do, he finally managed to shake her off. Arriving at the hospital office, Fiona hurriedly reported the mission. It turned out that the spy headquarters in Westalis had discovered an internal mole, but by the time they realized it, the traitor had already fled. He had also stolen many classified documents, including a coded map. That code contained information about the operating bases of Westalis spies in Ostania and even parts of the plan for Operation Strix. If the mole brought the secret documents back to Ostania for decoding, all Westalis spies, including Loid, would face mortal danger. Now, they had to personally go and capture this mole. At the same time, the Ostanian Security Service also received urgent information. They were sending agents to the border to support their man's safe return, determined not to let Westalis spies interfere. In another development, in a small alley in the border area, a pursuit was taking place. Facing a chase by Westalis spies, a man jumped over a barbed wire fence and then vanished into an alleyway. When the Westalis spies chased him in, the man had disappeared. To their surprise, the opponent possessing extraordinary skills had hidden above them. He used a box to knock one agent unconscious, the other one chased after him, but it was too late. The man used a human shield, then fired 2 shots, killing the pursuing Westalis spy. The agent who had been knocked out just woke up and was immediately finished off with another shot. But this guy's actions weren't over yet. As soon as he left the alley, a car sped toward him. With just a glance, he gauged the car's speed. As the car approached, he jumped up and fired 3 consecutive shots into the driver's seat. The car lost control, crashed into a wall, and exploded. That man was Winston Wheeler, an undercover agent of the Ostanian intelligence service who had infiltrated Westalis spy headquarters for a long time. It was he who secretly leaked Westalis secrets to Ostania, causing immense damage. Before Loid infiltrated Ostania, he had once carried out a mission with Wheeler in Westalis. In Loid's memory, he was an elite spy whose strength rivaled his own. This mission was extremely difficult, but if they didn't dive into the fire, the Westalis spies in Ostania would be purged en masse. To protect his comrades, Fiona suggested abandoning all current missions, including Operation Strix, but Loid refused. If everything had to start from scratch, it would take years to catch up with Donovan's plan. Therefore, they had to win this battle at all costs. Not long after, Loid and the others reached the border city. The Ostanian Security Service agents also arrived, but even though they were in their own country, they had to stay fully disguised. The reason was rather awkward. The Ostanian elite did not want a confrontation with Westalis. They wanted to secretly seize the classified documents while the public remained unaware to maintain their diplomatic image. Thus, their next move was best kept secret. They hoped to lure the spy Twilight into the field, where the secrecy would be even more effective. Meanwhile, Loid's team was ready. The veteran and Fiona went ahead to capture Wheeler. The agent in the passenger seat stayed at the designated location as backup. Loid was responsible for holding back the Ostanian Security Service to prevent them from contacting the target. To his surprise, Wheeler had just finished shaving when he received a phone call reporting a mole, and the deal was cancelled. To be cautious, he went into hiding. Meanwhile, Loid finished his disguise and approached his target, Yuri. He took out a book and drew a map of the nearby streets, telling Yuri to stay calm because the original meeting spot was crawling with Westalis rats. They rescheduled for 30 minutes later in the park. Yuri was suspicious. If it weren't for the blue tie and the gem serving as a signal, he would have been certain the man was Twilight. After receiving approval from his superior, Yuri agreed. 30 minutes passed, and Loid, disguised as Wheeler, arrived at the park. A scarred SSS officer demanded the documents. Loid, playing it safe, asked to verify the officer's identity first. The scarred man laughed and instead questioned Loid's identity. As soon as Loid gave the secret code, the man signaled his subordinates to call headquarters. Loid sensed something was wrong. It turned out the Ostanian Security Service had set a trap. Wheeler's identifying feature, besides the blue tie, was that the gem on the clip did not have a fixed color. Different colors were assigned to different suspects. By stating a color, Loid had unknowingly walked right into their trap to catch the mole. At the meeting site, everyone quickly realizes that the person before them is not Wheeler, but Twilight in disguise. Twilight believes he has bought just enough time for the Nightfall team to capture the real Wheeler. The captain glares at him and remarks that his disguise skills are indeed as legendary as the rumors suggest. You are Agent Twilight. Do you want to remove the mask yourself, or should we do it for you? Without a word, Twilight preemptively attacks and flees. An officer gives chase but falls into a trap, ending up suspended from a tree branch, which provides Twilight an opportunity to escape. Realizing the opponent is more dangerous than anticipated, the captain orders a total lockdown of all exits and instructs the remaining units to converge on the park. Shortly after, 2 officers give chase and discover Yuri lying unconscious. When questioned, Yuri claims Twilight knocked him out and fled toward the east. They immediately resume the pursuit, while Twilight, now disguised as Yuri, sighs in relief, having successfully fooled those 2 little idiots. However, the real Yuri quickly notices his own footprints in a spot he has never stepped before. Sensing something amiss, Yuri scans the surroundings and spots a sewer entrance in the distance. Despite having no orders, he ignores protocol and decides to pursue Twilight on his own, thinking the spy left these tracks out of panic. The captain reluctantly agrees and stations ambushes at all sewer exits. In the sewers, Yuri realizes that if Twilight reaches the city depths, he will be nearly impossible to catch. As he nears a wall, Twilight suddenly appears and aims his gun to attack. Yuri dodges just in time but stands frozen upon seeing his own face. Twilight is equally stunned to face the real Yuri. My brother-in-law, why did he have to show up right now? The two immediately clash. Meanwhile, in another development, Anya accidentally breaks a plate while doing housework. She cleans up while feeling irritated because her younger brother keeps spreading rumors about Loid having an affair. She blames Yuri for everything, including her own restlessness. In a brief comedic shift, Yuri transforms from an exemplary Ostanian citizen into a stubborn legend in a heartbeat. Back in the sewers, Yuri shoots Twilight's hand, drawing blood. However, Twilight counterattacks, causing Yuri's weapon to fall into the water. Yuri kicks back, disarming Twilight as well. Twilight blames himself for hesitating too long in that crucial moment. Yuri is astonished by the perfect mimicry, wondering why the spy chose his face over the others on the mission. Yuri lunges with a barrage of punches, demanding Twilight's surrender. Twilight dodges and delivers a powerful kick that brings his brother-in-law down. Yuri stands up and declares that all exits are surrounded. Twilight is unfazed. He warns that if Yuri doesn't retreat, he might lose his life. This only infuriates Yuri further. Twilight uses his belt to strike Yuri down. I told you to listen. Just stay down and eat porridge for a few days, quit being so stubborn. When Twilight tries to leave, Yuri rises again. Twilight delivers a final, decisive blow. Seeing Yuri unconscious, Twilight hesitates with his weapon but ultimately tosses it aside and leaves, unable to bring himself to kill his relative. The scene shifts to the hotel, where Fiona and the agents are anxious over Wheeler's absence. Without hesitation, they activate Plan 221. A male agent realizes the chances of luring Wheeler out are slim, but the equipment Twilight left behind might turn the tide. He enters the restroom, changes clothes, and emerges perfectly disguised as Captain Gascoigne. He signals Blue 1 to take position and leads Blue 2 and Blue 4 outside to set the bait. Meanwhile, from a nearby window, Wheeler observes the situation silently. He is uneasy about the lack of signals from the captain and senses something is wrong. He sees the captain appear and becomes even more vigilant. He reasons that if the real captain were being tailed, he would know immediately, so this is likely a decoy or a swap. He tells himself to be careful, as one mistake could destroy years of undercover work. The agent disguised as the captain walks a long distance, speculating that Wheeler might be following from afar or hiding nearby. He decides to create a diversion to locate the target. On signal, a car intentionally crashes into a utility pole, creating enough noise to draw a crowd. He figures a normal person would look at the accident. But a tailing spy would never take their eyes off the captain. As the crowd gathers, the agent panics, thinking no one is following him. However, Fiona spots an anomaly. A man is still watching the captain through a window reflection. He is pretending to look at the crash, but his focus is elsewhere. Fiona notes that if he hadn't worn transparent sunglasses, she might not have noticed. In her mind, Wheeler's disguise is still far inferior to Twilight's. Then, Fiona shot him a look cold enough to freeze. Wheeler immediately changed course, realizing he was being shadowed. Fiona made her move, ordering Red 3 to stay glued to the target while the remaining Blue Team wing moved in for immediate backup. As Wheeler broke into a run, Fiona accelerated, pursuing him while ordering Red 4 to cut off his escape route. In the blink of an eye, vehicles were deployed, boxing him into a corner. Fiona stepped out of her car and rasped, "Hide and seek is over, Winston Wheeler." She ordered him to put his hands up and surrender the documents. Wheeler nonchalantly replied that the documents were back at the hotel, adding that she was welcome to go there and fetch them if she dared. Fiona dismissed his joke as pathetic, telling him to drop his bag and come quietly. After a brief standoff, Fiona signaled Red 4 to restrain him and conduct a thorough search. Even with his hands bound, Wheeler still found time to mock the East, complaining that their literature and films were dreadfully dull and suggesting she should go home and enjoy her life instead. Fiona snapped back, "Shut your mouth. You can't even handle your own mess, yet you're meddling in other people's business." At that moment, Red 4 fished out the folder of documents. Wheeler curled his lip in satisfaction, satisfied. "Now you can let me go." Fiona replied coldly, "I'm sure you've already read and memorized everything. That means you're coming with us to a Western prison for interrogation. Don't worry, they have enough books there to keep you busy for the rest of your life." This is when Wheeler plays his trump card. He grabs Red 4 by the collar, yanking him forward to use as a human shield, and begins choking him right in front of Fiona. He growls, "Drop your weapons, or you know what I'll do." But Fiona doesn't flinch. She tells him straight that when she came to the East, she was already prepared for the fact that death could come at any moment. Wheeler pauses briefly and then laughs. "I have to admit, you are truly heartless." At that exact moment, Red 3 appears behind him. Wheeler is distracted for a split second, and Fiona seizes the opportunity to lunge at him. Wheeler manages to dodge, grabs a knife, and leaps over a nearby railing, executing a classic villain escape. He waves goodbye and dashes toward the sewer entrance. Fiona jumps down in pursuit, shouting into her radio as she runs, "Get the choked agent to the hospital, protect the documents, and have the blue team support me, I'm tailing the target." During the chase, Fiona re-evaluates, Wheeler is more dangerous than anticipated, and she alone might not be enough to stop him. She briefly considers waiting for Twilight but immediately kills the thought. Twilight's goal is to maintain peace between the East and West, and for that, they may have to pay a price. However, another thought flashes through her mind, jolting her awake. If she dies, Twilight will surely be grief-stricken, and you will be right there to comfort him, bringing the two of them even closer. Fiona immediately panics internally. No, absolutely not. I must survive, I must live at all costs. Meanwhile, in the sewers, Twilight is looking for an escape route when he hears hurried footsteps. He immediately becomes alert, wondering if it's the secret police or Wheeler himself. The footsteps suddenly vanish, and in the next moment, Wheeler ambushes Twilight from behind. Twilight quickly maintains his Yuri disguise, showing his security ID and claiming to protect a target. Wheeler remains calm but suddenly kicks Twilight, revealing he is seen through the disguise. Wheeler smirks, mentioning he once worked with a wise agent skilled in disguise and is now certain Twilight is that man. Just then, Fiona arrives and sees Twilight defeated on the ground. She panics, unable to believe this is Twilight since the face before her is Yuri's. Wheeler exploits her hesitation, threatening to unmask the spy. Fiona is so enraged she stomps the ground with a murderous gaze. Elsewhere, the real Yuri is woken up by Chloe. Still dazed, he mistakes her for Anya and hugs her, only to be punched awake. Captain Gascoigne orders Yuri to be taken for treatment, realizing Twilight has had enough time to escape. Back in the sewers, Wheeler threatens Fiona, forcing her to drop her weapon if she doesn't want Twilight to be in danger. Fiona complies, even breaking her own weapon to prove her choice. Wheeler mocks that in the world of intelligence, emotions only make people weak, claiming he trusts no one and always controls his feelings. However, seeing Wheeler step on Twilight, Fiona can no longer restrain herself and launches a ferocious attack. Wheeler dismisses it as a foolish move and prepares to counter. However, he is completely overwhelmed by Fiona's speed and power. Her direct punch is so strong it breaks Wheeler's arm, even though her own joints are dislocated from the impact. Wheeler is sent flying while Fiona stands there with a cold gaze, ready to continue the fight. Anya had no idea that just by Loki flexing about the new animal friends she met at the zoo, Bond would get instantly salty right next to her. He started showing off his cosplay skills to prove he could replace any animal out there. The story kicks off with Fiona, the strongest sidechick energy in history, who just had a showdown with Wheeler and successfully broke the mole's face. Even though both her arms and one leg were completely trashed, she still wanted to swing her broken limb to teach a lesson to the guy who dared to beat up her crush. Just as Fiona was about to use a headbutt to send the opponent back to Mother Nature, Twilight suddenly woke up and put a stop to it. After all, one more disastrous headbutt and both of them would risk being deleted, with Twilight being the one stuck dealing with the aftermath. For now, just tie him up, they might still be able to squeeze some important intel out of the Astania side. At this point, Fiona started to chill out a bit, but she was still confused. How could someone as cracked as her senior lose to a weakling like Wheeler? Twilight was speechless, not knowing how to snake his way out of this one. He straight up admitted that before the combat with that guy, he had gone bloody mode against Yuri, and that fight was no joke. Not only did it drain all his stamina, but his right arm also caught a bullet, making his punches deal 0 damage. Furthermore, during the fight, he absolutely couldn't go all out on his brother-in-law. After all, the whole condition for his marriage was to make her brother feel at ease. If Yuri was gone, you would definitely have no reason to stay married, and Operation Strix would go down the drain. That forced him to pull his punches, and being covered in injuries before running into Wheeler made getting fed less pretty much inevitable. Fiona, however, saw right through the things her senior couldn't say. Her intuition told her these were just excuses and not the real reason. Perhaps in Twilight's heart, those strangers had actually become the family he had to protect. But since he claimed it was all for Operation Strix, Fiona could only temporarily bench that theory to focus on the main task. Not long after, the uncle disguised as the captain showed up to provide backup, and everyone was finally able to retreat. After all, besides the unconscious Wheeler who needed to be carried back to HQ, Fiona had 3 broken limbs and was struggling to move at all. That rare moment of closeness made her beyond hyped. She even forgot the pain while they were moving. It wasn't until she was safely sitting in the car that she realized it hurt like hell. Then again, this mission couldn't exactly be called a flawless victory. It was more of a both sides got wrecked situation because, in reality, a high-value Westalis mole had been captured at the State Security Service HQ. As for what comes next, they can only head back to their respective homes and wait for the next orders from leadership. When Twilight dragged his exhausted body back home, the memory of accidentally upsetting Anya this morning was still vivid in his mind. Finally showing his face to his wife at this hour, he even imagined a scenario where you would start roasting him the second he opened the door. But much to his surprise, when the door opened, you was standing there with a bright smile, her voice radiating a magnetic sweetness. In a flash, the anxiety in Loid's heart completely vanished, but his massive fatigue hit him just as fast. He felt like he didn't even have the energy to move, which left him feeling a bit let down. He asked himself why he was so easily defeated by just a smile. No way, gotta act normal in front of the wife. First, Loid thought about apologizing to you. After all, it was because he was useless that you felt dissatisfied this morning. But hearing that made her even more embarrassed. Ya honestly confessed everything that happened yesterday. It turns out her co-workers told her that a family is only complete if the couple actually fights. So you wanted to try nitpicking and pick a fight with her husband just for the sake of it. Only by doing this could they pretend to be a normal couple like everyone else. Loid was shook out of his mind, his brain spinning from hearing such nonsense. Having zero energy left to argue, Loid immediately fell face first on the spot. If there was no more drama, then he just wanted to rot for a bit. So he asked you to handle the rest of the housework for today and prep everything for tomorrow. Ya happily agreed since she was almost finished anyway. Right while the two were talking, Yuri suddenly burst through the door. Seeing her brother injured, you found it super weird. How did both her brother and her husband end up injured at the exact same time? But the two had god-tier reaction speeds. Yuri claimed he messed up at work and got beat down by his boss. Loid said the hospital had a patient who was a pro wrestler, and during a therapy session, the guy caused the injury. Even though you totally fell for it, Yuri still felt this brother-in-law was acting extremely sus. So while Loid was making tea, he stood right next to him to observe closely. Surprisingly, Loid's right arm also showed signs of being injured. Yuri immediately thought of the spy who caught a bullet in the exact same spot. To investigate, he directly lunged forward to roll up Loid's sleeve, but the weird thing was there wasn't a single scratch there. Seeing this, he was about to roast her brother for being rude, but Yuri reacted with ultra speed, saying he was just helping roll up the sleeves. Even though her brother is rarely that thoughtful, you still felt he had bad intentions. To let her husband, who had been drained all day, finally rest, you kicked her brother out. Seeing Yuri leave, Loid finally breathed a sigh of relief. Luckily, he managed to use fake skin to cover the wound just in time, otherwise, his identity would have definitely been exposed this time. But thinking back, as a top-tier spy, almost getting caught like that was a total fail. He really needs to get some quality rest to get his head back in the game. Stepping out of the bathroom, Loid saw that you had turned the house into a complete mess. Honestly, he was speechless. He wasn't sure if he could even trust his wife with these chores. The next morning, after getting treated, Fiona's condition started looking up. She just needs a few more days of bed rest to fully recover. Regarding this mission, the higher-ups were very satisfied with Fiona's performance. At the same time, they criticized her for diving into battle without a care for her own life. At the end of the day, you have to keep a cold head in this profession. Reckless moves without considering the cost will get you fed less sooner or later. Even if it was for Loid, she shouldn't have risked her life to that extent. But the second they finished talking, Fiona immediately blushed. Turns out her secret crush on Loid wasn't a secret to anyone anymore. This time, she was truly dying of embarrassment. Meanwhile, Anya was shook to discover that since Mama Ya took over the housework, her breakfast was actually delicious for once. Even if it wasn't a huge change, it's still a bit of a glow-up in the cooking department. At the dining table, Anya read her dad's mind. Papa just caught a bullet. She couldn't bear to let Loid take her out to play, so she told him to get some good rest and that he didn't even need to tutor her on her homework because she could handle everything herself. Later, Anya sat down to draw. She drew the animals she saw at the zoo yesterday. Anya even bragged about the lion she brought back from the zoo, making Bond instantly salty. As soon as he heard Anya say she had a new friend, he rushed over to reclaim his best pet title. If Anya likes lions, he'll transform into a lion. If Anya likes elephants, he'll try his best to make his nose grow long just like one. Even so, Anya was still delusional enough to want Bond to try cosplaying a giraffe with a super long neck. But those requirements were too extreme. Anya was helpless because Bond couldn't shapeshift according to her wishes. Beside her, Ya had a pretty interesting idea. For example, wetting the neck and legs then grooming them a bit, and Bond could become a giraffe. But after all that showboating, our dog could only turn into a pure white alpaca. After you finished grooming Bond's fur, Anya got hyped seeing that. She thought getting groomed would feel amazing and help her become all sleek and shiny. And so, one was down to groom and the other was brave enough to be groomed. Anya swapped places with Bond to let Mama Ya brush her hair. After just 2 minutes, she became a shiny, smooth version of Anya. Right at that moment, Frankie kicked the door open and walked in. He said he came to drop some stuff off for Loid. Seeing him, Anya stepped up to flex her sparkling hair. She suggested Mama Ya should give Frankie a session too so he'd look handsome, but Ya declined. After all, if she groomed Frankie's hair, no one would be able to recognize him as the Afro uncle. No way, Anya insisted on seeing a soft and smooth-haired Afro uncle. Loid, on the other hand, was speechless. It was way too noisy. Resting at home seemed even more unstable than being at the hospital. But seeing this peaceful scene, Loid felt a bit comforted. Season 3 ends here, so help the shop smash that subscribe button right now. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to see the latest videos. Thank you.